let's start off with some introductions about what each other do and how this is. We don't really know each other super well, but we kind of we're so inspired by both of these games that we just kind of wanted to come together and talk about them. So I'll start with you. So could you tell the audience here kind of who you are, what you do, and what made you want to talk about these two things coming together?
Yeah, so I'm Michael Sinclair II. I guess I'm an actor that plays games in like TTRPG games in several shows that are streamed here on Twitch. I've played D&D since 2015. I was inspired by Critical Role. I watched them, right when they first premiered on Geek and Sundry. I was already someone who was watching that network anyway, so that was kind of cool. And then I got into Magic the Gathering when I went to my first LGS Comic Quest, where I met Gil the Vlogsmith, which I play in a game with him now. But I met him at that Comic Quest in California. So that's where I first started. That's when I went to my first LGS. When I was already playing D&D on my first deployment before that. So I was seeing people playing Magic the Gathering when we were playing D&D, and it kind of piqued my interest, and it looked difficult. And I've heard people playing Magic. They looked like they are having fun. It looked much less nerdy or like edgelordy than I had first thought. So I was like, okay, maybe there's something here. I got like a starter pack and played it a bit, and then I was like, okay, there's something here, and then I went from there. And I think the reason I'm inspired to talk about this set is I think there's been a lot of crossover from Magic the Gathering to D&D with, I have the books here, the Mythic Odyssey of Theros and the Guilds of Ravnica. I forget what one's called, but they've done that. And this is the first time, that they've done an official D&D set for Magic the Gathering. I think they've already taken inspiration, obviously, from Magic the Gathering. When I watched the the Legend of Drizzt, the YouTube episode that just dropped from Wizards of the Coast just recently.
Mm-hmm.
I forget what her name is. Starts with an M, but she's the lead one of the lead designers for Magic the Gathering, and she talked about how there's already some crossover from D&D to Magic the Gathering as far as inspiration goes, but this is their first time that they're able to actually make a whole set. So I think that's what I'm interested in. I'm interested. We were talking before the break, or before we started, about bringing new players to the table. I like the D&D community. I like how it's so inviting, and I've spoken about this before. It's like kind of self-correcting, and like we try and create open spaces and invite people because there's something there. And I think the same thing with Magic the Gathering. It's helped me a lot with computer science. I'm a computer science major. The stack, it's helped me understand that and think more logically about not just that stuff, but like life stuff and like trying to order things in my brain. So it's been helpful for that. So I think there's a lot to Magic, and I think however you approach it, there's something that there's value to be had other than the game itself. So I think that's why I'm so excited, and I love both things so much.
Absolutely. Thank you for sharing all that. I think all those thoughts are, I'm very in line with all of those thoughts. And I'll introduce myself. My name's Commander, also known as Marcel. I am a Dungeons & Dragons DM here on Twitch. I almost exclusively stream Dungeons & Dragons games that I run for content creators. That is what I do here. So I run a Tuesday night game with a few content creators that are like my close friends, and that is the first show I started with. It's kind of my baby. It's inspired by Samurai Jack, if you've ever seen that show. So it's a time travel homebrew world D&D show where basically the big bad guy sends them forward into the future before they can defeat him, and they have to find their way back in time to defeat him. So that's a really awesome show that I love to run. Then on Wednesdays, I run a Greek mythology inspired campaign where the players are all demigods, and they have homebrewed abilities that come with being a demigod. So, for example, one of them is the son of the god of death. So He can revive a creature once per day, but only for a few minutes, and that he can talk to it. It becomes like his friend, and then it turns to dust. So that's like his special homebrew ability that he has for being a demigod. And it's a lot of fun to kind of add those things in there. One of the reasons why I love D&D so much is it's literally limitless on the possibilities of stories and abilities and things you can do in the game. So I'm excited to see them bring the lore over into Magic, which is a game that is very kind of by the numbers A and B kind of thing. And I think it's going to be cool to bring all of those D&D players over to the game, those creative thinkers, those people who are like so imaginative. I'm excited to see those new people get into Magic and have some new smoke in the game, if you know what I mean. So with that, last thing I'll say that I do here on Twitch is on Fridays soon, June 4th will be my premiere date. I'll be running a campaign called Elegant Evil, which is actually from the villain perspective. It's an all-female cast that is trying to resurrect a demon to grant their wishes. So it's a lot of fun, and that'll get started here on June 4th. So I'm really excited to run those shows, continuing to run the Wednesday and Tuesday shows and starting the Friday show.
That's some big Liliana energy. I love it.
Exactly. It's got the very gothic, like gothic vampire mansion vibe to it.
That's cool.
So for me, these two games mean a lot to me. First of all, Magic. I started Magic my first year of college, and my first set was Theros, the original Theros. And I enjoyed the game for the aspect of hanging out with my friends at the time. I was a very kind of like loner person, and one of my friends just randomly invited me to come to a game shop, not to play Magic, but to come with him while he went to go buy packs. Like that's what he was in. It was like, I'm going to go to the game shop. Will you come with me? And then we'll go do a movie or something afterwards. And anyway, he went to go buy some packs. And I think whatever set was before Theros, maybe it was Ravnica, original Ravnica or something like that. He bought a pack and he opened up Pack Rat. And at the time, Pack Rat was like this insane card that everyone wanted. And I saw everyone clamoring in the shop to try and get it from him. And it was really interesting for me to see all the people. And they were all laughing and like punching each other in the shoulder. And they're like, oh man, you opened like $20. And like, you just paid for your pack. And they're all like, oh, let me get that. And he's like, no, I play a black deck. I need this. And so, I had always been a Yu-Gi-Oh kid when I was younger, but, of course I stopped when Yu-Gi-Oh stopped being cool or whatever. When you're a kid, you stop doing the things you like because somebody said it wasn't cool. And I started getting back into Magic, or started getting into Magic because of that feeling kind of reemerging of that, like I said, that kind of A and B feeling of playing a card game. I like that logical game where it's strategy and like depending on how well you do it, you can be really good at it. So he started showing me the game. I fell in love with it, and it was all downhill from there, or I guess you could say uphill. And then D&D, I found even later. Actually, I only started playing D&D in my junior year of college. I was in an extremely dark place. And a friend of mine, out of nowhere, when I was at one of my lowest points, a friend of mine said, hey, do you want to come play Dungeons and Dragons with me? And at the time, I had the same prejudice that a lot of other people have, which is like, that's like a nerd game where we all get in robes and we play in the basement. Like, we're all dressed in like, our Sunday robes and wizard hats. And he's like, no, man, just come play. And my first character was Michael, the Drow Elf. And he was very drizzed, you know what I mean? He was very much that character. And maybe it was because I was so dark at the time, so depressed. But it actually helped me cope with my depression in a way that was just like extremely cathartic. And I got to, slay monsters and be a hero and make memories with my friends. And I think from there, I felt that feeling again of being a kid swinging a sword around in my backyard with my friends. And again, it was just like, there's no going back. These two games just mean a lot to me for different reasons. And I think bringing them together is, it was inevitable. And I'm excited about it. This company, it makes both. Wizards makes both games. So I knew it was going to happen. It's exciting to me that it's coming in a way that is so in a time that's so accessible for both of these games. They're so accepting, and both of them are so inclusive. And like we talked earlier, both of us yesterday were playing Magic with people that were under the age of 15 with their parents there, trying to teach them how to play Magic, and we were there to help them. And that's just a cool feeling, man. Like, it's cool to be in a space that's so inclusive and exciting for kids, and gets people using their imaginations and brings people together. And I'm really excited about this set.
Yeah, agreed. Yeah, and I think both Magic the Gathering and D&D have come a long way as far as making the spaces more inclusive, and there's definitely more work to be done, but I'm happy with the general direction it seems to be going. So
absolutely.
Yeah.
All right, so the plan for today for everybody is we are going to go through each of the spoiled cards from Adventures in the Forgotten Realms, I believe is the set name.
It is. That's what it's called.
Boom, got it.
We did something right today.
Yes.
That's hard to do as Magic players.
So true. So true. So we're going to go through starting with like the basic lands and kind of work our way up to some of the bigger cards, and then we will discuss how they feel in terms of D&D, and then we're going to discuss how they feel as Magic cards, and if they seem good in both realms. Do they seem like a good fit from D&D, and do they seem like actually good Magic cards? We'll actually talk about how they feel as Magic players. Would we play them? That kind of stuff. So let's start off with cards that we kind of have to play, our basic lands.
Yeah.
So we're going to start off with the Swamp, which, let me zoom in here. Maybe I can zoom in a bit for everybody.
You definitely need these lands unless you're some weirdo Tron player that's just like, I don't know. Don't worry about Tron.
It's so true, actually, because one of the big things that I've noticed in my LGS is that we've got a lot of players that are starting to take basic lands out of their decks and use, non-basics just like exclusively almost. And it's pretty funny when I cast like a Veteran Explorer or something, and it dies, and like only half the players are searching for lands because everyone else is like, all I have is fetches and shocks.
Yeah.
And
Assassin's Trophy, and then they're like, are you gonna grab a land and shuffle your deck? They're like, oh no, I just decline. I'm like, what? Yeah, I just decline. Oh, you don't have any basics. Cool. Okay.
Exactly. So starting with the Swamp here, let's see here. So we've got a beautiful cathedral on the art and some flavor text on a basic land, which I think this is the first time in Magic's history that I can think of where they have flavor text as the main draw of the basic land.
Yeah.
So go ahead.
Oh, go ahead. Oh, I think they should do this more often because, right, there's so much story that they don't tell, and they obviously have like books that they have books that sometimes accompany set, or they release lore on their website that you can read as a set releases. So I think just to kind of give a set more flavor, I think this is a direction they should go more often, so that it kind of submerses players more into the lore and gets them more invested, and then like newer players, they can like, oh, while they're playing Magic and learning stuff, and it's not their turn because sometimes turns take a little bit longer. They could look at the art, they could look at the lore, and kind of just let their imaginations go a little bit while waiting for their turn. So,
I agree. I think the basic land's a great place to start putting some lore because we have a lot of these vanilla creatures, a 3-mana 2/3 that does nothing that has the flavor text of the lore on it, which could oftentimes be put on the island instead of the blue 3-mana 2/3 wizard that does nothing. At least in my opinion, we need those vanilla creatures, but I think the lands are a great spot to put some extra love because they've been samey for the last 20 years. It's just kind of cool art, and while we love art, it's a great spot to put some story. Because there's just not enough of it, I think, on the flavor text of the cards. And putting that flavor text front and center on the thing that everyone needs kind of it's kind of unavoidable to get a little bit of the story, and I think that's a good thing. It's good that players know what the actual story of the set is. They feel much more immersed.
And they can do things like quotes. They can do things like even like poems. Like you could put a sick poem on like a piece of land, and that would be really cool.
Absolutely.
So it'll be interesting what direction they take. So I don't know. I believe you're going more into the cards, so go ahead before I speak more onto what's going on here.
All right. So we've got a beautiful, looks like underground cathedral, possibly a drow cathedral, as we'll read the flavor text here. You expected to meet hostile drow in this ancient ruin, but they fled long ago. What darkness could have driven them out? And we see fog kind of encompassing the area, and this is like a classic D&D mystery setting, and I love it. It's like the players have just entered into the Underdark, and they are faced with a surprisingly empty ruin. And that can be almost more unnerving than having creepy creatures there. The fact that nobody's there means that there could be something worse lurking. And I think that's like perfect for the black color of magic, and that like that mystery, that feeling of dread. I think that's perfect. What do you think about this?
No, yeah, I think it's amazing. I tweeted about this and what my thoughts were. The thing that could drive away drow is like eldritch creatures, or if there's a creature that's a little bit more scary than like how proficient drow are at combat and strategy. It's a scary thing.
If it can scare a drow, it's got to be pretty scary.
Yeah, and I think one of the games that is out of the Abyss. Although that module's a little bit ableist in some ways, and you can always run it in a way that's not. It does deal with things that have to deal with like paranoia and madness and all those things. I'm just using these words because that's the words they use there in their terms, but it creates a whole nother mental aspect of it. It puts another mental perspective. So that's something that you can also see here, that like if the drow just left, that's another thing. It didn't have to be a creature. It could just be the realm that's there. Someone may own this domain or temporarily own this domain, like a bigger abyssal creature. So like abyssal creatures can do things like that, where they kind of shift the attitude in a general area. So and it's great. It brings a lot of flavor. And the one thing that also draws attention, Mark Rosewater also says like, yeah, swamp is like, always like the spooky graveyardy like decks or element, but it's also one about independence and freedom and stuff like that. So that's something that you should also keep in mind when you look at any black card. So this might just be an open place, and it's an invitation. It could just be like something's driven out, but you might get a reward for investigating this spooky castle. So I think that's or fortress. So I think that there's so much here to take in that just then what meets the eye. So.
I agree. I think this is what I would call like the perfect hook. This is the kind of thing that gets players thinking. And what I love about these kind of hooks too is when my players start theorizing. They start theorizing what could have happened, and sometimes it's better than what I had in mind.
Yeah, they like give you ideas. You're like, yeah, you create enough immersion. Like this is a cool thing as a dungeon master. Is like if you cause enough immersion to a point in the game where you can sit back and your players are discussing how to strategize to do the next section or what they're about to go against, and you know that you create a world where there's enough life to it that they're taking things to that degree. But also sometimes it's great is that your party members give you ideas as a dungeon master. You're like, I didn't think about that, but I'm just gonna do that. I'm
Maybe
just
there
gonna.
should be a secret door here.
Yeah.
Like, that does seem kind of cool that you're
Yeah.
looking for that in this room. This room
Yeah.
feels like it should have one of those.
Someone in the party just like read a Legend of Driss or one of the Driss books, and it's like there might be like a Necropanther or something, and they're like,
Yeah.
I didn't think about that, but there's a Necropanther in there now.
Yeah, exactly, and that's the beautiful part about D&D. And so I think the set's doing a good job so far, at least from what I've seen. I've seen some of these cards beforehand, but I think the lands are doing a good job of what I would say throwing out hooks that are like D&D hooks. And we'll see that with the next one if you're ready to roll onto the mountain.
Yeah, go for it.
So here's the mountain. It's looks like beautiful mountainside art, which is perfect. I will mention the swamp from before did not seem like a swamp necessarily. It was the Underdark, but that's okay because the word swamp doesn't necessarily mean it needs to be a swamp, and so people should probably remember that. I was hearing a friend complain about it, and I was like, well, look at a lot of the swamps from the last 20 years. They are not swampy areas. A lot of times they're graveyards or something else. It's not the word swamp that matters as much as the feel of darkness. Anyway, off track. Beautiful mountainside with some sunlight coming through here, and the words, the flavor text on the mountain here read, as you make camp near the ancient ruin, you hear the sound of drums echoing in the halls where no dwarf has lived in generations. How you feeling?
This is great. I want to point the art, and then I'll go into what I generally think. But the art here is great. I love like really good mountains, really good rocky faces and terrain in Magic. I'm a rock climber, so whenever I see like really well done like mountains, before I didn't like mountains before I was a rock climber, like the mountain arts, and now as I've like rock climbed and stuff, I'm like, man, that art is sick. Like I want to climb that. I don't know how. Like I want to climb that card.
Oh man, that looks way too steep, man.
Yeah, not some sections. I wouldn't do some other parts. Are a little bit too scary. But
there's a little pathway here on the left.
Yeah, that pathway to the left, and then you could probably right where that like kind of squarish pillar. You could probably do some stuff right there, and that'll be safe. So I like this card, the flavor text here, and you see these pathways. So you see the pathway to the left that might lead to somewhere. You see this huge opening or entrance right in front and center of the card, a little bit to the right. And so you see this is almost like inviting you to like, let's go explore these ruins. Dwarf locations are normally they make their places, they burrow it kind of into mountains so they can find all those minerals, and they're known as master blacksmiths and craftsmen. So they're going to be making all these nice weapons and armor and any sort of like I don't know, enchanted weapons you can think of in armor. They also they also put that you hear the sounds of drums echoing in the halls. So the dwarfish lifestyle is a very I don't know if tempo is the right word, but they live their life in a way that, there's always something kind of to be done, and there's a rhythm or a way or methodology that they can go about it. Best reference I can have is like maybe like ants, how they all work in one unit, but they're all they can all have like, they're all a little bit different. So that's kind of how Dwarven society works as far as their work culture and how they function all together. So I think this card is a pretty good card, and not spoiled when it was spoiled. I was like, this is a place where like adventurers can go to get some sweet loot, because normally if you find a dwarvish encampment or place, you're gonna find those things that dwarves make. So I think this card is a good introduction to dwarves in general.
I agree. In Magic, dwarves are they're a really old creature type and a really new creature type, but there was many years where there weren't almost any dwarves at all in Magic. So way back, I'm talking back in like, there's like,
I got the Wikipedia up, so if you want to just mention something, I might be able to find it. As far as sets go,
I'm thinking of a dwarf where you pay X into it and destroy an artifact. It's from like,
oh, that's sick.
Tempest or is it Dwarven? I don't know. They were back in the black, like the old bordered cards before I started in Magic. I'm talking like
Sure.
1990s,
Sheesh. Yeah.
like early 2000s, and then there were just 15 years where there wasn't a dwarf, like almost a single dwarf in Magic.
Okay.
And then just in the last few years, they've been bringing more out. In the newest set, which I'm much more familiar with, I can name some cards there. There's Magda, which is an awesome dwarf from Kaldheim that creates treasures, which is perfect for the kind of blacksmith, hammer on the anvil kind of feel. There are the 7 dwarfs that came out in
Eldraine?
Eldraine,
Okay,
yeah, which you can have 7 of in your deck, which kind of breaks the rules of Magic. They are giving dwarfs some more love. In Kaldheim, there were so many dwarfs. There was a ton of dwarfs in Kaldheim. They have this kind of equipment feel, and we're going to see later as one of the newer spoiled cards is a dwarf as well, and how they kind of work with equipment here in Magic. I think they've done a really great job of taking that dwarven feel and creating a Magic spot in Magic for them. I think this mountain does a good job too.
Doors are known for like I said, their equipment that they make, their armor and their weapons. And so in Magic there's a card type called Artifact where you can kind of soup up a character with one of these artifacts, make them stronger, make them more protective, or give them some special abilities or whatnot. So we're starting to see a lot more of a relationship in Magic between dwarves and artifacts, which is like spot on flavor. And so that's really cool to see.
Exactly. And almost all dwarves, I haven't seen a single dwarf that isn't red yet. So I think it's perfect that they put the dwarves on the mountain here. And what I like about this hook too is it gives me a feel of like a mixture of themes here, because it feels almost like a ghost story to me when I read it. It sounds like a ghost story where like I'm gonna go into this ruin and maybe there's like the spirit of the spirits of dwarves like marching around that I'm going to be able to either interact with or have to fight or something like that, and I like that feel. And it actually, I can see it in the art too, with the sun shining through the windows. It has almost that cathedral like feel of like an abandoned church or that kind of feel like there's some spirits or like some creepiness going on here, and I dig that. I think they've done a nice job with the basics so far, and like I said, I think those hooks are really important to get players immersed, and I think they've done a good job. Another thing to note here is the artist is the same as the swamp as well. So Adam, I think it's Adam Paquette. Yeah. Adam Paquette has done both the swamp and the mountain. I'm not sure if Adam Paquette did all the basics, but we're going to find out as we move here on to the forest, which is also by Adam Paquette. So this forest here looks like an elven city risen up. And here we have the flavor text, which is, before the elf queen will aid you, you must find a way to cure the strange rot afflicting the roots of the ancient trees.
I like the design, and this is in D&D as far as the flavor of what you're seeing here. Typically we see elves in like forests that is undisturbed by the elves, but you never quite get to see where they live. And in D&D, that's like a big part of what elves are. So elves in D&D normally use their surroundings and kind of morph harmoniously with their forests or their the trees. So here we're seeing that they've made houses and buildings out of trees themselves and are incorporating their designs and architecture around that. So, which is really huge in D&D. I'm not the best elf person when it comes to normal elves, like high elves, half elves, in those ones. I usually like the kind of off flavor ones, like the Shadar-kai, the Eladrin, and the Drow. And it's my own maybe thing with elves. I normally see elves associate with a specific type of people, and I'm like, okay, there's no one-to-one. I don't really connect with that. So I definitely have some things to explore with elves, but this kind of definitely draws me towards it because this is the elves I've imagined in my mind, and also the things that I've read about the elvish culture. So in regards to D&D, and then normally the elves believe in some sort of hierarchy, and this one we do see it says something about an elf queen. So usually you'll find an elf queen, they're very reverent, they have a huge charismatic presence about them, and they take their domain very seriously. So I think this card has all those points of flavor.
Absolutely. I think that these elves in this art give me a feeling of more than just your standard wood elf. I imagine wood elves oftentimes as communing with nature, as you said, in a way that's much more primal, much more simplistic. Whereas these elves seem to be more of a mixture of it gives me a wood elf and a high elf kind of mixed together, where they've created these beautiful architecture pieces that are incorporated with nature. And they have the queen, which is something that I often think of monarchies with the high elves and that kind of thing. It seems like there is a bit of pompousness with the flavor text when the queen says, I'm not going to help you until you help me fix my problem. I feel that kind of like snarkiness, nose up kind of feel that I often think of with elves. And to be fair, there are a lot of ways to play elves, and I think this is mostly based in our experience with media. You know, a lot of times in media, elves are portrayed as these kind of snarky, nose up kind of creatures, but you don't need to play them that way. But I think that's kind of the way Wizards is taking it, which is like the most common direction, is at least how it feels.
Yeah, overall, they're bringing the set to kind of they're hearkening things to older things, and they've done some things to improve on, some of the some of the lore and improve on some of the aesthetic and the I don't know how to say this, but like they're trying to work on making the place more inclusive. So, but you still here get to see kind of the old history of kind of elves as far as D&D when it
almost the
goes
tropes.
back. Yeah, the tropes. You're seeing a little of the tropes, and sometimes that appeals to other people, and that's fine. But I think it's actually kind of cool. You see a little bit of Magic's history, and maybe we'll also see throughout the set that we see kind of how Magic or how D&D started, and then kind of how it's starting to continue to the new generation and new age. So I think even this card has stuff like that in it. That we don't quite just get at first glance.
Exactly. I think there's so much lore here. This is a very unique kind of elven infrastructure. And one thing that I also noticed, I don't know if did you play it all during Aether Revolt and
I
Kaladesh?
came in around the Ixalan. Okay, so I came around like kind of towards the very tail end, because I started playing around Ixalan Dominaria, but there were still some of those old cards in the shop, and I like have some of those cards, but I have no idea about the Kaladesh and that whole thing. I just know that they're very artifacty and very like kind of like a technological steampunk like extravaganza kind of thing going on there. So you'd have to tell me more about it.
So there were actually quite a few elves in Kaladesh and Aether Revolt. Those whole sets, they had a lot of elves in them, and they were very artificer heavy in a way that was very unique for elves. It was a totally unique kind of take on it, and the art style of this city in the forest art is very Kaldheim. It's very Aether Revolt with like the swerving kind of twirling.
That platform right there.
Yes, exactly. And so I just thought that was a neat inspiration if it was, and if it wasn't, it's just a cool connection in my own brain that the elves from different planes kind of have this unique way of creating their infrastructure, maybe no matter what time period they're in. And I think that's pretty cool.
I think as we look through all of this, I think this is kind of like the most intense, and it's very interesting. I'd like to like talk to the designers of the set, but like this is like the most intense work I think they've ever done as far as like really digging deep into the art and digging deep into both the Magic and D&D universe. Because like normally the last set, like I look at the cards, I'm like, cool, this is what was the last set? Kaldheim or Strixhaven. Like I'm like, all right, cool. Like, this is a new concept and this is kind of cool, and I'd love to revisit this. And there's some stuff to be seen here. But This set just feels a lot different. It feels like they're really digging deep here. So yeah.
And it makes sense, I think, because again, they own both games, they own both properties, so they can really do whatever they want in terms of that, like digging as deep as they want. I agree. I think they've gone ham with the art, just nuts.
Yeah.
This art is beautiful. Oh, well, Adam Paquette actually specifically so far, because he's the only one we've seen. But
good job, Adam.
Yeah, exactly. All right. Here, onward to the island. This is one of the most unique islands I've ever seen here. The island is actually gorgeous with this like tornado swirling in the center of this ruin. And it says, alarmed by the news you brought, the storm giant king of the maelstrom has called his kin to council. Epic.
Yeah, it's a sweet card, and I like the perspective on this card. It's hard to tell. Like I keep trying to like find a point of reference, right? Science brain. And it's hard to tell if this is underwater or if this is out in open air. And that I really like that feel about this island. It kind of it challenges your perspective from how it's, I want to say shot, but the kind of the way it's pointed towards the source of focus, like very hard to tell whether you're underwater or above water.
Is that a reef on the edges, or are those trees?
Right, exactly. I can't tell. It's very hard, and that's awesome because it keeps you looking at it. So here it talks about the storm giant king of the maelstrom, and I spoke about this in one of my tweets. He does have a specific name, but just like the elves, except I believe even more strongly, their lifestyle is connected to like a hierarchy about what kind of giant you are. There's different sorts of giants in D&D. There's like a hill giant, rock giant, stone. Let's see. There's like two other ones. I don't know if it's a fire giant, and then the storm giants are like the tippy top. I think there's an air giant or something as well. But storm giants are like the tippy top, and obviously he's the king of storm kings. So like he is, apex storm giant of all giants. So I think that's kind of cool. You're seeing this kind of water spout or tornado kind of kick up, and you get to kind of think as a D&D player, like if you've played the Storm King's Thunder, which is a module out there, it's something that you could run if you don't know that. So you can just open up this book and kind of follow along and have a party play throughout this module, but you're getting to see the power perhaps of the Storm King, because it says he's alarmed. So this might be the Storm King kicking up some sort of maelstrom or some sort of maelstrom. And it's cool. This is a great card, and Adam Paquette is knocking it out of the park again.
Absolutely. I mean, holy crap, Adam Paquette is killing it. It makes me wonder how much time it takes to make these pieces for him, or if he's just a savant and is able to just knock them out.
Yeah.
But I imagine he's been working on them for a long time. So what I like about this hook compared to the others is this seems like it's, to me, this seems kind of like that mid-campaign hook. When I think of, like, you've done all these quests before, now you have news to bring to a person, and this is like the midpoint, like, climax of the story, where now you're being set on the new, bigger quest, where the Storm Giant King is going to bring the council together, they're going to talk about what needs to happen, and then they're going to send you on to do the next piece of the quest. And to me, this seems like a genuine continuation of a story as opposed to the start of one. And I like that, because it doesn't always need to be like the very start of a story. Sometimes you can jump in the middle of a story and feel the same excitement and wonder about what's going on.
Yeah.
And that, as well as giants here in Magic, again, as I mentioned with dwarves, not a lot of love for giants in the last 15 or so years until Theros came out. And then Theros had the giants that came with the legendary giants, with Croxa and Uro.
Oh, yeah.
So they had those that kind of brought the giant feel back in. And then in Kaldheim, of course, they had giants and a whole theme around giants where they had the giant that draws you cards when it deals damage. They have the instant or sorcery that you can give a giant +2/+2, which is you can buff a giant and it does extra things. So they have all kinds of giant themed cards coming up. And what I've noticed now that I'm thinking about it and talking with you, I've noticed that they've done this with dwarves, giants, and even elves, they have started before even the set came out. They were leading up to it with support cards, which is interesting to me. Like they
even
like
the party mechanic,
Yep.
you know, the different because like we're talking about we're talking about races, right? But we're not talking about
classes,
professions or classes. So like just a couple sets ago, they got more heavy into clerics, wizards. We saw warlock with Strixhaven, which I'm a big warlock guy.
Yep, hard skip
warlocks. Yeah. I was like, thank you. And you see like warriors. I think there's also barbarians, but I don't think they've like highlighted barbarian specifically. But we've been seeing this in the past couple of sets. So I don't know if they worked their way up to it or it's a happy coincidence, because stuff like that happens in Magic the Gathering. They're like, oh, we've been doing these things. Definitely the party mechanic was like, okay, we're making a D&D set. Like everyone's like, there's something going on here.
Yeah.
But even before that, these things that Commander was talking about, you know, we're seeing those things. And I think Wizards probably thought like more likely, I think they're like, this is a happy coincidence. We want to do a D&D set. We've been kind of having these things pop up. What does everyone think? And they probably were like, yeah, let's do it. Let's get into it. So really cool to see. And then you spoken to, you know, bring up Kroxa and Uro, these wonderful cards. And there's different, like there's a death giant, there's a fire inferno giant. And so this thing, you can almost in your own mind, even for if you bring this back to just D&D and not MTG, you can grab stuff from MTG. The council, who is the council in this Storm King's that's kind of meeting with the Storm Giant King that we all know in D&D. Well, hey, you know, maybe we could throw Kroxa, Uro, Death Hunger, the Death Titan, the Inferno Titan in a D&D game and just put them in a like a little, they're all around like a henge or something, and they're all sitting around, and you're like a small little party like looking at all these giants like speaking primordial, and you're just, you know, you're freaking out. You're like, oh my god, what's going on? This is bigger than me, and we're about to be sent out on a mission by these huge things. Yeah, I think that's cool.
Yeah, absolutely. And I think that drawing that in, if you have players in your D&D campaign that are Magic fans, that could be a lot of fun. And there are modules already out there. If you are a player who likes both games and you have friends who like both games, maybe you've never tried D&D, there are sets out there for Ravnica. If you like the Ravnica block, there's sets out there for Theros, where there are books you can buy, and it's a pre-made module. There is homebrew stuff that people have made online to include Magic the Gathering characters and things like that. So make sure you guys check those out, because they've already started with bringing Magic into D&D. This is just their first endeavor in really bringing D&D to Magic and like really going all in on it. They've flexed a little bit here and there, but this is like the first like set where they're really doing it. So check those things out if you are a Magic player looking to get into D&D. You can always message either of us or tweet at either of us, and we can give you guidance on how to do that. Cool. Plains is our last basic land here.
Plains.
And this is interesting to me. Yeah. This is really interesting to me. Again, Adam Paquette. Thank you, Adam, for the wonderful art. Here is the flavor text for the Plains. Venturing beneath the desert sands, you've discovered an alien power pulsing with inconceivable energy.
Oh, yeah. This card. So sweet. It's so good. You go ahead. All right.
So I am inspired by this card, first of all. I don't often bring my D&D campaigns to deserts, but I forget that there's an underneath to the desert, which is something that I forget about sometimes. And so this is cool that they have brought in this kind of underground feel, first of all, to a Plains, which is totally different. This almost looks, it could be a swamp if you just palette swapped it to like blue. Like, this could definitely be a swamp. And so I love this. This is also a totally interesting flavor text for a Plains. When I would think D&D Plains, if I were to bring the D&D feel over to a Plains, I would think like a classic grassy plain in front of a castle is what I would put on an art piece.
Or your starting village, yeah.
Yes, or your starting village, or like a farm. Like, and I'm so glad they didn't. This is so unique and interesting, and it's not at all what I would expect for a Plains as a Magic player. And maybe that's because I'm biased, because white for me is a color I just don't use very often. I'm not gonna jump on the backs of people who say that white is the worst color in Magic, because I don't think that's true. But you can talk about it if you want. But
No,
I do think that white is just not my kind of color. It's not the Magic that I want to play. I'm not into taxing people and exiling all their stuff and that kind of thing, which I think that's where white is really strong. And without getting into the really, I'm not going to get into the weeds here, but
yeah.
With that, this art and this flavor text, I think they've done a really awesome job with creating a new feel for white in this particular crossover. What do you feel?
Yeah, just to talk about the art and Adam Paquette's ability, the lighting in this, like as far as if you look at the lighting, the perspective of the lighting and the shadows, just out of the park. Because you're still getting the green glow from those little like mushroom looking things, and then that almost sun looking thing, you're seeing how the light's bouncing off of everything and the shadows on the other side of that little like cavern wall, and you still have like a hole there, so the lighting there is great. And speaking about it being underground, yeah, this is a cool underground plains. Maybe the plains is referring to, you see these mushroom things, and that might be like the farmy, weedy thing of this underground areas, like these mushrooms. They talk about alien power. There's many alien things in D&D, so it's and they're all enigmatic, and it's really hard to play. So like, I play lots of D&D. I've read lots of lore. I don't know what a ball of almost energy or sun looks like, or that's there, that has to pinpoint to a specific like race or alien being. Like, I have zero idea. So when I said, hey, when I talked about this card on my Twitter, I was like, this could be, something eldritch in nature. This could be illithids. I don't know how illithids or why they would have some sort of like energy ball or sun, or it could be the myconids, like the mushroom creatures, the Underdark, and those are sometimes referred to as alien-like. So I think this card has so much mystery, even as a veteran D&D player. I can't think of what's going on here, but my mind's just jumbling around trying to figure out like, what is this alien power? I don't even know. So I think this is really cool.
Yeah, I totally agree with that. I think one thing I'm noticing is the sense of scale. You can see, I believe those are 3 people standing, staring at the sun there. Like,
I think there's even more people. It's hard to tell, but I think there's more people to the right, and there's like a little almost like pathway to the right between some stalagmites over there.
Yes.
So I think I love when they put, I was going to say that I love when they put people to scale on cards, so you can kind of get how big the perspective is, and it makes the land feel more alive. Like, it makes it feel like you're taking a photo of in a place and time. Sometimes when you look at a land, it's not that it looks dead looking, but it just looks like, oh, this is just a landscape, right? It doesn't have like, sometimes looking at certain cards, there's no life to breathe in. Here we're seeing that with people, and it being even underground. So I think that's cool.
Now, before we move away from the basic lands, we can theory craft for a second here. Do you think that they are going to just have these 5 basics, or do you think that they're going to do the same as they've done before and have 3 or 4 different art versions? And if they do have the 3 or 4, do you think they'll all have flavor text, or do you think these ones will be special?
No, I think they all have flavor text. They did this for one, and it's the D&D set. They're going to have it for all the other ones, and I think they'll have more, because if we look, I've been keeping track on Notepad++ about all the cards and their number designations, because on Magic cards, if you look at their number in this picture, you'll see in the bottom left-hand corner 265 out of 281. And so normally they release 3 or 4 lands of each type in every set, normally, not maybe all the time. I'm not familiar with all of Magic's history. So there are kind of big gaps between, if you go back to the last one, we're not going to cover it in detail again, but if you go back to the last land we saw, so this is 265, but if you go one to the other ones, there's huge gaps of like numbers of 2 or 3 between all these different land types. So I know, looking at that, there's a very high likelihood that there's more of these basic lands. So
yeah, I lost it, but
no worries.
Yeah, so I agree. I hope that you're right. I wonder if they'll all be done by Adam Paquette, or if there'll be sets of 5 that are done by different artists.
I
That would
hope
be
it's
cool.
done by different artists.
Me too.
But Adam Paquette definitely knocked it out of the park. So.
Agreed. All right, we're on to our first card
Hey, we're
of
there.
the actual set. And this one is very nostalgic for me because it showed up in my first campaign that I ever played in. This is Portable Hole. It's 1 white mana from a plains, the plains that we just talked about. And it reads, it's an artifact. It reads, when Portable Hole enters the battlefield, exile target non-land permanent an opponent controls with mana value 2 or less until Portable Hole leaves the battlefield. This is an imprison effect that has been printed more and more in the recent sets. What do you feel about it?
Yeah, I think the imprison effect is cool. There's something to be said, especially with Portable Hole. Definitely gives me those feelings. But there's other ones where it's like Glass Casket that they had, where it kind of holds your creature there. And if you have some way to remove that card on top of your creature or thing, then you get your card back. And it's a very like, even flavor wise, it's a very cool thing. And it's like, it's just, there's some element to it where you can see that your card's not completely gone, but the other player kind of has it. And it then does something a little bit to your head. And, but I always kind of love to kind of see that interaction's kind of cool when I step back and think about it. So here we have Portable Hole, one white mana. So before we were showing the lands. So if you tap that plains that we saw before, you can pay for this Portable Hole and play it. And here it's 1 white mana, and you can exile a target non-land permanent opponent control. So essentially what this is essentially saying is like you get to target your opponent's card, and you're more than likely going to place that card underneath this card, and they won't have access to it. It being 1 mana and it affecting things that are 2 mana or less, I don't know how it's going to play out in standard. It might not even see play depending on how the creatures scale out in this set compared to other sets. But I definitely feel like it's going to see play in like Pioneer or Modern, where the mana costs are way lower and everything's a little bit more efficient. So in standard, you have all these standard is a format, so it's the more recent sets that come out. In standard, you have a slew of cards to pick from, and it's not always the most powerful things, but more your powerful effects come around the 3 to 4 mana range. And maybe you'll find something that's like 2 mana that's really strong. But the older formats like Modern, they get to pick through a bigger part of Magic's history, so they'll grab all those like really efficient, really good like 2 mana, 1 mana, 3 mana effects or cards. And then this is when this type of card becomes really useful and powerful, because you're only trading 1 mana to do a thing to someone else's thing. So I think it's going to see a lot more play if it does in older formats. And then the flavor text, they fall for it every time. Really cool. So if you're a Magic the Gathering player and you don't know what Portable Hole does, it does what it kind of says. It's a storage place, but you can also use it as these creative adventurers you see here, use it as a trap to maybe put a creature in, and then they can tuck them away. So if you fold a Portable Hole, it kind of like closes it if you think about it as a lid. So yeah, great card.
I agree. I think they did a really good job of thematically. They showed you on the art exactly what it would do in game in D&D if you wanted to use it in the way they used it. Like you said, it could also be used as a storage device. I agree with you. I think Portable Hole is going to be used in sparingly in older formats like Modern and Legacy, where there are many 2 mana or less non-land permanents that need to get removed very quickly. So for example, there's a card called Dark Confidant, which is a 2 mana 2/1 that lets people draw extra cards at their upkeep, and it's a very common card used in these older formats. This 1 mana white artifact exiles that creature underneath it. It puts them in the little Portable Hole, and they're stuck there. And a lot of times, you don't have, in these older formats, you have to be very sparing on what you are able to use to remove your opponent's artifacts and things like that. And so this being an artifact and not just a
enchantment
or something like that, it makes it so that now they've got to spread into more than just enchantment removal. Now they got to spread into artifact removal. It's versatile. It gives a different kind of feel. Interestingly enough, you can Portable Hole your opponent's Portable Hole, which then brings your thing back. And then if
That's
they
so
get rid of your
interesting.
portable hole, their portable hole comes back, and then they get to exile a new thing.
That's so funny.
It's actually, it is pretty funny, right? So I did find it interesting that this is a artifact, in my opinion. I know the portable hole is an item in D&D, but considering it an artifact, I guess you can even see with the border of the card, artifacts often have like a metal feel to them, or like a metallic feel. And so
That's
it is
where my brain,
interesting to
I
me.
was like, there's something happening here that my brain was telling me a context, and I'm like, I'm not picking up. I don't know what's going on, but because this gray or silver is so close to white, which these enchantments are normally that color, it's so interesting. So that's why I didn't see it, and you caught that. And I didn't even see that as an artifact. My brain automatically assumed it was enchantment. So when you said artifact, I was like, wait a minute, is this an artifact? I didn't know it was an enchantment. It was not an enchantment. So
Yeah, man.
yeah, it's really cool. It's really cool. They haven't made effect like this artifact. I don't know if they have, but it's going to be part of the unique things that are removal that are artifact. And
Is
I
Glass
like
Casket an artifact?
I want to say it's an enchantment. I'll look it up real quick on Scryfall, but I want to say it's
Because you can portable hole your opponent's Glass Casket in Standard right now.
yeah, glass casket. It's an artifact. Okay, so they've done this before. Okay.
And
I didn't even,
is
I couldn't even
Glass
tell.
Caskets 3 or less?
It's I believe it is 3 or less. Yeah, it is.
Yeah. Okay, so yeah, interesting. And it's 2 mana. So
Oh, you could trade up, or
Yeah.
you're trading up, and that's a really
Right.
good effect. Yeah.
right, but you also can't hit something that's 3 mana, which is a lot of like the Titans in Standard right now. Like Croxa, for example, is a 3 mana giant that you can get with your Glass Casket. You can't
Well,
get
it's
with
2 mana. It could get hit
Oh,
by
2
this
mana. You're
portable
right. You're
hole.
2 mana.
Yeah,
you can get it from the portable hole. What's Uro? Uro's banned
Uro's
though.
not. Yeah.
Well,
Not for
anyway.
Commander though, and that's still busted in Commander.
True. Which is Commander your favorite format?
It is now. I was a big Standard. I played lots of Standard, and then I got into Historic, and then Historic is there's just so much going on. So I'm getting more into Commander, especially with Wizards kind of focusing more onto it. So yeah.
I agree. I really like Commander as a format because you can use any card from Magic's history, and you can make a thematic deck as opposed to like a deck that is like the best cards. And so I really like that. Plus, it's a multiplayer format, which is always good for socializing. So if you guys have never played Commander, it's actually where I get my name from on Twitch, twitch.tv/Commander. I used to be called Commander Crusaders. I did Commander Content on YouTube, just gameplay stuff and deck crafting and stuff. And I've moved away from that more into D&D. I dropped the Crusaders and just got twitch.tv/Commander. It's
sweet.
very confusing when I go into like someone who's playing Commander's chat, like if they're playing EDH, and I go in there and everyone's saying like, oh, like has your Commander been played? Like it highlights my name in the chat, and I'm like,
Oh no.
All right, so portable hole, cool card, good flavor text, very efficient, cool. Next up, Power Word Kill with some insane art by, is it just Izzy?
Yeah, they have a longer name. You could look it up. I don't
Okay.
think it's like hidden information, but I think they like their artist name is known as Izzy.
Okay, cool. So insane art, beautiful art. I'm blown away, and it is an instant 2 mana. So 1 mana of any color, and you have to have a black mana to be able to cast the spell. It's an uncommon, so it is one of the it's the 3rd rarest rarity in a card pack that you can get. And it's an instant speed spell, which means you can cast it on anybody's turn. Your turn, their turn, anyone's turn. And it says, destroy target non-angel, non-demon, non-devil, non-dragon creature. With the flavor text, Aramil issued a long heroic challenge, then the Lich felled him with a single word. And you can see the Lich in the background there. So what are you thinking?
This card just it makes me feel so many things. Anyway, love it. Power Word Kill, just a memorable spell in D&D. PWK. I've casted it once. Damn, it feels great. It feels great. Not the card, but the spell. It also has this like Adventure Time feel. If you ever saw Adventure Time, and Adventure Time also harkens a lot of its stuff, its content from D&D and fantasy TTRPG games. But you're seeing like obviously the Lich is probably not that big, but it's showing the dramatic effect of probably what the person sees in their mind of like, you know, death happening and this like grim reaper looking type of thing coming, reaching out and trying to like, you know, remove your whole life force like in one single instant. So I think it's a really good card. There's like a sword or dagger there. It looks like he was maybe ready to, you know, stab something, but it fell to the ground and now he's like convulsing it, and it's like mid convulsion. It's really cool. Even the form of that creature's body tells a lot there. So really good art, and I like how it's hard to tell the perspective the perspective you have in this. It definitely feels like you're more inside this character's mind rather than there's like it being a physicality of the real world, because you have like this ethereal looking like brown yellow bottom floor and then like this darkness that you can't peer through behind. So I think the art there is awesome. I think this card might not see, it might be in standard. It might, because it's a very, we look at a lot of these like really efficient 2 mana, right? It's 2 mana to remove a thing at instant speed, like you said, on anyone's turn. And it's usually you get restrictive things when it's this low mana cost. So it says you can destroy lots of like creatures, but you can't destroy these creatures. So that being said, to us, you know, Commander, I'm sure it tells you that this D&D set may encompass a lot of these type of creatures, or at least 1 or 2 of them. And we have some other blocks coming out that might also have these creatures. So this card, it's going to be funky. I think it's a good sideboard card, probably for standard or historic. That's going to be for those formats. But I think Commander, I think Modern, I think Pioneer, you're going to see a lot of this being played because these creature types aren't as much seen in those type of formats, because when you see an angel, demon, devil, and dragon, those are usually high mana costs, or you have to pay into it at a pretty high rate, and you don't want to do that in really efficient formats. So I think Power Word Kill is going to see a lot of play in older formats, because it's just like you could just remove the bottom text and just say destroy a creature at that point. So
right. I agree with what you've said here. First of all, speaking on the art, I think, like I said, it was the first thing I noticed when I popped this card open, and it is absolutely insane. It is so unique compared to many other spells that show the caster casting it on the art. This is a unique take on that. It's from the perspective of somebody being affected by the spell, it seems. Yeah. And I like that kind of reverse of the feeling there. I never imagined Power World Kill as something that would hurt, but it looks like it hurts like a bitch.
Yeah, I never thought it would hurt either. I thought it was just like, you're gone. But in this one, the artist definitely chose like, and you know, this person might not even actually be hurt. It shows the after effect. Maybe the person just blinks out of existence, but it leaves the body in this state. So,
right.
But yeah, you can definitely tell like something, it tells your brain like something's not right here.
Right. And like, I imagine the Lich's voice, something like, die.
Yeah.
Like that with like an echo, you know, and like it's just over for that human or that elf or, you know, just that like mortal creature. One thing I will say here, and I guess this is my first kind of big critique, is I don't think that this card works thematically for the actual spell that is in D&D. It is one of the most powerful spells in the entire game. It's a 9th level spell. I don't think it should be 2 mana, and I think it should kill anything, in my opinion. I don't think... So the only stipulation in D&D is that they have 100 or less hit points. So I think that it is a bit strange that I can't kill a 1/1 devil with my Power Word Kill.
So I think the flavor it's kind of going with here... I still think it's spot on flavor. Angels, you can see angels being more than 100 hit points. You can see dragons. You're not very likely if you run to a dragon that has less than 100 hit points. But
I agree.
There are, and Commander's correct. Devil and demons, you could definitely run into those that are like 30 hit points. And if we're trying to like kind of combine the two genres of Magic and D&D, yeah, you wouldn't be able to kill it with this. But I think that Power would kill, right? You're trying to target the soul of something. So like sometimes devil or demons, they carry in D&D, sometimes they carry soul coins or whatever.
Mm-hmm.
So there is a possibility that instead of like you say power word killed, so a devil or demon, yeah, they die, but then they also have a soul coin, and then so like their soul just comes back, or another soul inhabits their body. So I think if you look at that perspective, there's many ways in D&D where a devil or demon may not be affected by something like power word kill, especially if it's a higher level devil or demon. They'll just counterspell it, or they'll use a legendary resistance, or there's so many things. So I think if you look at it that perspective, Commander, that and usually devil and demons are accompanied by other higher beings of devil and demons. So I think if you look at it that perspective, it still works flavor wise. So I don't know. Let me know what you think.
I can agree with that. I think I'm thinking of it more in the binary magic sense of the way the card works and the way I see mana costs and things like that. I think that this is, again, one of the strongest spells in all of D&D. It is a 9th level spell, which is almost as high as like you can get in terms of just
regular in the books. Yeah.
Right. Exactly. And it says you utter a word of power that can compel one creature you see within range to die instantly. If the creature you choose has 100 hit points or fewer, it dies. Otherwise, the spell has no effect. So I agree. I think angels and dragons and some demons and devils you're going to come across. Just this is not going to affect in D&D, let alone in Magic. So I do think it works that way. But then in the same realm, why does this work on giants? Why does this work on like other things that definitely have way more than 100 hit points, thematically speaking? So yeah. I could agree with that. I could agree with your point, but I also think that there's another way they could have gone about this, which is, in my opinion, maybe if they made this spell 4 mana and it let it kill anything, and then maybe also remove the rest of the cards in their deck with that card's name or something like that for 4 mana. So like 4 mana, instant speed, destroy target creature, and then search your opponent's library for any number of that creature and put them in the graveyard. So that's that creature cool,
because we did see that with Tests and Talents in the new Strixhaven set. So that's a unique flavor on it. But I actually like the way they did this, because I think it's going to see more play than if it was the way you saw. Because 4 mana is a lot of mana for an effect, even for that effect that you just described. So
this card's going to get played for sure.
Yeah, and I think that's okay. And I think my perspective on it is, if you think of souls, if you think about power word kill, it usually affects like the person's soul or like their being. And so if you think about that from that perspective, if you power word kill an angel, demon, devil, or dragon, they usually have some sort of sense of like something that has to deal with a soul that wouldn't make power word kill connect like you want it to. So I think if you think about it that way, it's kind of cool.
I can totally see it from that perspective, and I totally agree. I don't think we're on different playing fields here. I think we're just
exactly.
We just have different perspectives on it, and I like that.
Absolutely.
All right, ready to move on?
Yeah.
All right. Prosperous Innkeeper, a classic D&D starting campaign NPC. Yeah. Prosperous Innkeeper here is a green halfling citizen creature. It is a 1/1, which means it has 1 power, 1 toughness, and it's 2 mana. So it's a 2 mana 1/1, and it's 1 mana of any color and a green. So you have to have a green to cast this one. When you cast this creature, if it enters the battlefield, if it resolves and it comes into play, you create a treasure token, which is a little artifact that you can use to make a mana, like 1 mana of any color you want. And then it goes away. And then it says, with the second piece of text here, whenever another creature enters the battlefield under your control, you gain 1 life. And uncommon.
I have feelings.
It's a halfling, the first halfling, and the first citizen, I believe.
Nope. They had that in. They had it in War of the Spark. Remember the citizen token that you could win if you have. They had it in War of the Spark. You could have like a 4/4 citizen or something, and they also had it in Eldraine. Eldraine, because you can win the game with that queen if you had the queen and a citizen of all color types, which was technically gold or whatever. You can win the game. I forget what it's called, but it's so it's not their first citizen.
Okay, but it is their first halfling.
Maybe it might be their first citizen on a card. I think the tokens they have never made a citizen token, so you might be right. Okay, they've made citizen tokens rather.
How you feeling about the Prosperous Innkeeper? You can see him. He's
I
jovial.
Fucking hate it. I fucking hate this card already. Because all right, I don't hate the halfling citizen. I don't hate the halfling citizen. It's the card I hate. So lately, and I don't know how long, but since I've been playing the game, maybe a little bit after Ixalan block, they've been making really strong green value cards. This is another one of these things where the colors I play, which are black and red, you have to generate incremental value over time and make the right decisions. Where this is like a green card you can play and forget in a sense and accrue value just over the whole term of the game. And so it makes it really easy. It also makes a treasure token. So if you look at it from this perspective of, say you only play D&D, if you're playing Magic the Gathering, what we see here, why it's such a powerful effect, even if we don't read the whenever a creature enters and you gain life, it makes a treasure token. So effectively, this creature costs 1 mana, and it being so efficient because it pays for itself, it pays for half itself essentially. That's a very strong effect in Magic because you're keeping your tempo up. You might be able to play 2 things on a turn 2 turn, which is really big. You can almost have 3 things in the game by your second turn, which is a lot of things by turn 2. So and they've been doing this a lot lately with green and blue cards in the recent set. So I have a way of feeling it. And it makes me very frustrated because I can tell playing the colors I play is going to be very hard to deal with this thing and maybe get value and overtake my opponent in value and tempo throughout a game. So.
Okay. I can see that perspective for sure. This is a mixture of abilities that have been put on different cards, but not really on the same card before. For example, creating a treasure token, not often a green thing, but I like it in that I think that it works for the innkeeper. I think that it does work thematically for the innkeeper really well.
100%.
I also think that the innkeeper should make a food token, but that's just my own opinion.
You trying to make this card way too busted? Okay, buddy.
But I don't think that the second ability, thematically speaking, I don't think the second ability is that broken necessarily. I also don't think the card is that broken.
I think the card is broken. I don't think the second ability is broken because like life in Magic isn't. You think that's a great resource, but it really isn't.
Right. It is a resource, but it is not
the best resource.
Right. It gives you more time, but in the same aspect, like a lot of games, you
don't
win.
Come down to it doesn't come down to just because I have more life, I win.
Right. Exactly. I disagree that this card is extremely powerful, and the only reason I say that is because if you're using your turn 2 to play a 1/1, I may have already gone off with my mono white deck. I may already have 3 1/1s that I'm already swinging in every turn. I may have a dwarf with equipment on it that's hitting you for 4 every turn. In a format like standard with 20 life, I would disagree that a 1/1 is that impactful on turn 2. That makes you one temporary mana. Like if it made me a Birds of Paradise that lasted every turn, then this card would be absolutely busted. But I don't know, 1 mana.
I disagree in the sense that it's not even so much the 1 mana there. It's just because that extra mana gives you so much flexibility, and that's where I see it. Like right, you have the other innkeeper that we saw in Eldraine. That every time you play a creature with adventure, you get another card. Mm-hmm. That's value. It's passive value. Yeah. That's awesome. This is generating not such a great passive value, but what happens here is when you play this turn 2, even though it's a 1/1, because like in its standard slower, if you play this creature and you create a treasure, you can either put another creature down for that turn, or you can wait till turn 3 to play a 4 mana card, and that's a big move. Even if you had those 3 white creatures out, imagine you have something. This is not going to be part of the set. But imagine you have a questing beast out on turn 3. That's really hard for white to punch through, even given all their removal and things like that by turn 4. So that's what I'm thinking there, is that there's so much flexibility happening in this slot that you don't see immediately.
I can see that. I think a temporary boost in mana can swing a game if done correctly. And I imagine nobody's going to play this incorrectly. Or at least try to. They're going to try and min-max this to a big degree. And if you've got 3 prosperous innkeepers, 4 prosperous innkeepers in your deck, that's pretty consistently you're going to get a 4 drop-off on turn 3. So,
and the Strixhaven set this thing works with the Strixhaven's with the Witherbloom set. So that's why I said this is also going to be busted, because it's going to be the same standard block, because you're getting life for putting creatures just into the game. Witherbloom's going to abuse that, and they also get a free mana. So
True. Yeah, the Golgari decks are going to be crazy with the pests and the innkeepers. Yeah, I agree. I could agree with that. Maybe I retract my statement. I think this card's busted. All right. I know we're jumping from a 2-mana green creature. We're going to jump over here to a 7-mana, 5-color dragon god. Here we have Tiamat, the goddess of dragons. 2 and 1 of every color. So 2 mana of any color and then 1 of each. White, blue, black, red, green. Legendary creature, dragon god. It's a mythic from the set. Has flying, so it's a flying creature. It says, when Tiamat enters the battlefield, if you cast it, search your library for up to 5 dragon cards not named Tiamat that each have different names. Reveal those cards, put them into your hand, then shuffle your library. And flavor text here says, my children will rule over all. And it is a 7/7 creature.
I'll let you take it away. You're the commander player. You're primarily more the commander player. This is definitely that direction. So I'll let you take it away and give your perspective.
I don't know if this is a hot take. I don't think it is. This card is trash. This card is really bad. Tiamat as a dragon god, legendary creature. It is cool to helm a commander deck. It is cool, especially if you're a D&D fan. Having Tiamat at the helm of your deck with a deck full of dragons fucking thematically is amazing. But the card itself is much worse than many of the other 5-color dragons that are already out there. From Ramos to the Ur-Dragon to the Scion of the Ur-Dragon, they're all just better than Tiamat. The only way that you can make Tiamat work is if you try to figure out a way to make your deck more of this kind of like jam creatures into play from your hand for free. Like that's the only way I can think of making this deck really good. Because if you're paying 7 mana for a flying 7/7 with no protection, it's got no hexproof, no indestructible, nothing like that. You are drawing 5 cards, which is cool, but those 5 cards, there's no way you're going to play those on turn 7 with Tiamat. So you've drawn 5 cards that are probably all over 5 mana. What are the odds that you're even going to be able to play 2 of them on your next turn, let alone all 5 of them? So you would need to really build your deck around throwing a mass amount of creatures from your hand into play after playing Tiamat. Like you have a sorcery in your hand that's like, you know, drop 3 creatures from my hand into play. I don't even think that sorcery exists, but you got artifacts like Quicksilver Amulet. I'm going into detail for a lot of things that as an EDH player, probably a lot of people don't even know about. If you're a standard player, you probably have no clue what I'm talking about. But first of all, standard, this is unplayable, and commander, it's not that good. It's just not as good as something like the other 5 or 6 5-color dragons that are out there. I mean, it's better than Okagachi, which is a shitty 5-color dragon, but I mean, that's not saying much.
Yeah, I think Commander's correct. You have to do some work to make this card do well. There's definitely this Tiamat card will need some backup, and I believe it's going to be good in the 99, but not 99 being in Commander like your main deck and not driving the helm of your deck. Unless it's a fun casual game and you just want to make a statement. Tiamat makes a statement. This card makes a statement. 100%. 100%. But you know, I think it needs a supporting cast to play Tiamat well, and it needs to be in your main deck of the 99. If you have like, was it Kalita, the Vast or something, where you can attack and put a free dragon into play or something like that with Tiamat. So like, you know, you're at turn 7 or turn 6 or 5, depending how you play out your mana. You play Tiamat, and by that time, you probably have already used 5 cards out of your hand. You probably only have 2 or 1 cards in your hand. This refills your hand, and then maybe with Kalita the Vast, you can cheat out. Cheating out means you're playing something without usually doing the mana cost, or you're manipulating things in a way that so that you can put stuff onto the board that you're not supposed to. So I think you're going to have to cheat out Tiamat in some sort of way, and Commander's correct. This card is a good late game card when you need to refill your hand, but that's probably as best as that this is probably the ceiling of the card, the best this card's going to get. Yeah.
Right. And at least it doesn't die to power word kill. I mean, that's something. Right. But again, yeah, it's not going to be played in many formats. It is going to be played for people who love D&D, who love Tiamat, who have a connection to that character from the lore, and they want to have that helm their commander decks. But other than that, the card is not going to see play in almost any format, at least in my opinion. Talk about the art here for a second. Incredible art, beautiful, I think. Not really the way I've always imagined Tiamat, but I do like it. I do really like it. And that's just because in my brain, you know, I have my own way of seeing Tiamat, which is just a bit different than the five-headed elemental kind of. And
I think what's cool here is that we can't really tell if these people are in danger. I mean, they're definitely in danger. It's Tiamat, but we can tell that like this might be purposeful that they're there. And in the, what is it? Something of the Dragon Queen is a module. Something of the Dragon Queen. That's a D&D module. There's a plot or a mission or a quest that either you can resurrect Tiamat, sorry, spoilers, or make sure Tiamat is sealed away forever or for a longer period of time. And I think what we're seeing here is like these are probably acolytes or something of Tiamat who are very happy that, because you see their hands out, right? So there's a lot to happen in this card. It's not just like here's a huge dragon and these people are just like scared out of their minds. They don't look scared. They look like all of the focus and attention is towards Tiamat, and it doesn't look like Tiamat's directly about to like annihilate them.
Right.
So it's hard to tell, but yeah, that's what I see as far as the art.
Right. And with the flames, it almost looks like Tiamat has come out of somewhere, like it has risen from that. So I like that. Let's look at the alternate art real quick. This art currently is by, it's hard for me to tell. Is it Chris? Is that
Ron? I think it's RHN, but I could scryfall it.
Chris Ron, yeah, Chris Ron. So awesome art by Chris Ron. Let's check out the alternate art here by Tyler.
I'll look this up.
Jacobson, I think.
Yes, Tyler Jacobson. Yep.
Okay, perfect. So Tyler Jacobson's art, a bit different here. Looks like Tiamat is by itself, not or by herself. Sorry, not like around anybody, just kind of relaxing, and it's kind of peaceful almost. It's beautiful, and I like the full art. Do you have any opinions here or there of the alt art?
Yeah, I like the alt art. So like the one that we just saw beforehand is more of a Magic style, right? But this one is more D&D style, and it looks like more of the full arts are more of the D&D style. So here we're seeing this is something that if you open like a D&D book, and let me just grab one real quick, you'll see art that they'll do stuff like that with. So so you'll see like if you open up a book, they'll usually have art on the side and they'll blend it in with the page, and that's what it kind of looks like in a sense of like what they're trying to go for. So something, you know, so that's kind of like if you look at both art styles, it looks like it should be in a page of a D&D book. And so I think that's what they went with the art direction. And I like how they have all the dragons in frame. And I like in this one, you can tell especially which one's the black dragon, which one's the green dragon. The magic card, the standard version, it's kind of a little bit washed out with all the effects happening, which realistically, that's how it's kind of supposed to be if they're going for realism. But this one is more, the colors are more bold. So.
Right. And I was going to bring up something to you. And I always like when we bring up a card that we don't think is that necessarily that good. Maybe have you thought of any fixes for this card? Like if you were to make this card, how would you go about it? Have you thought about that at all?
No. But now that you bring it up, I still think I don't think I would make it hexproof, because it like making this type of card hexproof would just make it really, really, really strong. It's a 7/7, and like not being able to interact with the 7/7 is you're gonna die pretty quickly. Which actually that might be okay, but I think maybe it'd be cool if it made like 4 4/4s in the different colors, like black, white, blue, and green would be really cool. And it still had like a 7/7, and for like how much is this 7 mana? That'd still be kind of cool. I don't think that might it'd be a game ender, right? And so it would actually take this card to a level where it's worth to work for to make all that work. So don't make this hexproof, but instead put 4/4/4s with different colored dragon types, and I think that'd be really cool. Or even 3/3, or even 3/3 would be fine.
Sure, and I could agree with that. There is something to be said about Tiamat bringing dragons with her that I think is interesting. I think, though, that at least from what I think in D&D, I don't imagine Tiamat needing to. Oh my gosh, getting blown up on my phone. Sorry.
Okay.
I don't really always imagine Tiamat needing to bring dragons with her, but I like.
This was more about her heads. Like those 3/3s were her heads. Yeah.
Okay. So that's
because then they would be like 5/5s or 6/6s if they're the dragons on their own. But it was more of a flavor of like, here's some 3/3s that are actually all part of Tiamat. That's what you're seeing as far as the board presence would go. Yeah.
Okay, so I have an idea here. Where is this card? Okay, have you ever heard of the card Last Stand?
Maybe that doesn't sound familiar.
Okay, so I'm gonna show you Last Stand here. Let me get the link for it. I'll put it up on the stream. I imagine Tiamat would be so much better with an ability like Last Stand. So let me see if I can make this work on the screen. Let me zoom out.
Oh, I've heard about this card.
Okay.
The art already, but I'll have to look it up on Scryfall. Oh, there it goes.
Okay, so target opponent loses 2 life for each swamp you control. Last Stand deals damage equal to the number of mountains you control the target creature. Put a 1/1 green sapling creature into play for each forest you control. Gain 2 life for each plains you control. Draw a card for each island. So here's what I'm thinking. Tiamat enters the battlefield. If it was cast, so it's not broken. If it was cast, do this. Target opponent or each opponent loses 2 life for each dragon you control.
Okay.
Each opponent takes, target creature takes damage equal to the number of dragons you control. Put a 1/1 counter on each dragon you control for each dragon you control. Gain 2 life if you want to make it simple for plains or for white. You could do gain 2 life for each dragon you control. Draw a card for each dragon you control. Like, I feel like that seems much more Tiamat God Dragon level to me than, bring 5 dragons out of your deck and put them in your hand. I think, like, giving you a bonus for how many dragons you already have in play would be cool. That's what I think.
Okay, so I agree with you there, and I think that effect is great, and I don't think it could be in standard. But I think if they were trying to make Tiamat like the face of a commander deck, like a precon, that would be ideal, and that would be awesome. Because, and I watched Good Morning Magic with Gavin Varhey, and he was speaking into like the standard sets that they've been releasing and they will continue to release. They want to make sure that the effects aren't, or the effects of the cards aren't way over and above someone's head who is getting into Magic. This type of effect, the effect that you just described, that's a lot going on for standard. But in Commander, that's fine. You have 3 other players to explain to you like how something's going to work. So if they wanted to go that direction with Tiamat, if they ever did, I think being the face of a Commander precon and having that effect happen, that would have been fine for Tiamat. They released this for the standard, and maybe we'll get a different flavor Tiamat for Commander, because I think they've done that where they've had
they have.
A same name but different things. It's like, maybe something like if they'd made a Commander precon, it'd be like Tiamat the Risen or something like that.
Right.
And then it would have all those effects that Commander described.
Yeah, exactly. I think they would not be amiss to do something like that. I don't think that anyone would bat an eye if they created a Commander deck based around Tiamat that had a better version of Tiamat. I think with maybe the original included even. But I think that the card itself is a miss, but the theme and the love for the character is there, and I see that, and I do have a lot of respect for them for even including the card at all. So, let's move on here. This is the only card here that we don't have any knowledge on, but it's called, I think, Baleful Beholder. Looks like it's a mono black card, and it's got 2 arts. So I'll show both arts on the stream. There is the regular.
Let's keep it on this art. Yeah, let's keep it on this art.
And
but like when we talk about it,
the alt art. So you go first, because my knowledge on Beholders is basically just the one, which I imagine they'll make him a legendary creature, a Xanthar.
Xanathar, yeah.
Yeah, I imagine they'll make him a legendary creature. They may not, but I would imagine it would be kind of crazy if they didn't. But other than that, my knowledge on Beholders is pretty small, other than seeing it in Critical Role and a few other things. So what are your thoughts?
Sure.
Mono black.
So my thoughts on Beholders is naturally they're very strategic kind of creatures, very mindful, thoughtful. Obviously, they're just a floating head. So, so like if you go to their lair, there's tons of traps. There's, you know, things that are going to confuse adventurers X, Y, Z. I don't know how that's going to play for in Magic. They're master manipulators. Each of those eye stalks have a different accompanying very powerful effect. Like one's a disintegrating ray, one's like a confusion ray, one is I don't know, like
there's like a guilt ray, isn't there, that like makes you depressed?
Like makes you sad or whatever. So there's so many effects that Beholders have, and they're just this very iconic monster in D&D. They made it black, which is also interesting. If it was my preference that I'd prefer if they made it Grixis colors. Because Grixis really speaks into like master manipulators in Magic and people who are very powerful with
that's white,
arcane,
blue, right?
Grixis is blue, red, black. Nico Bolas colors.
Okay.
I feel like Beholders have very close Nico Bolas like energy, right?
Yeah,
so
I agree.
That would have been cool if they made that a 3-color thing. So I don't know how what direction they can take this card. They could take this card so many ways because I know the lore about Beholders. I believe Beholders come into existence because of either their sheer willpower or because people imagine them to be. I forgot what the lore is on that, but they come into existence. They blink into existence. They're just not made. They don't reproduce or anything like that. They're just a horror that kind of just appears. And I think they're abyssal. Normally those things talking to the abyssal domain in D&D, but I believe they're just brought into existence either by their sheer thought or someone else's thought, and they're just these very terrifying creatures. There's only one Beholder, which Commander was talking about, that kind of has more of a personality, is I would say neutral, because there's these kind of like character archetypes in D&D where you have like evil, neutral, and good, and then those further break down. But this is the only time you ever see like a neutral one, which is Xanathar, a creature in, I believe, in the Forgotten Realms. And you can make deals with them and interact with them, and it's kind of cool.
Right. I agree. I think that the Beholder, at least from what we've seen, it looks like it's mono black from the regular art. I do think that there should be some blue in here at least. I imagine Beholders to be very intelligent, and I associate intelligence with blue and strategy with blue and black specifically. I do think there should be some blue in there. What are your thoughts? I mean, you said...
Yeah, I said Grixis because, right, they have the powerful effects of Disintegration Ray. I think they have Fireball and then, like, all those other effects. And so, like, speaking with all those, definitely not multicolored, but I think the Grixis Bolas energy. And actually, looking at this normal artwork, I'm glad you went back, even though I said keep it on the other artwork. I'm actually super glad, because there are necromantic Beholders. There are certain Beholders that after you fell them and die, I think there's different categories of Beholders, but after you fell them and die, they rise up again and you have to kill them. And I believe what we see here is not actually like a full-blown Beholder that's like happy and alive. I believe it's some adventurers slayed a Beholder. They didn't complete the job. They maybe ran away or whatever happened. And this one has risen back up again. And this is what it looks like when they come back. I remember reading it, but this is kind of the flavor that looks like when they come back from the dead. So that's probably why it's black. And there might be something where it can come out of a graveyard, which is a black effect in Magic. So that might be going on here.
Let's theorycraft. What do you think the ability is going to be? How big do you think it's going to be?
Probably at least a 4/4.
I was thinking 4/4 too. I'm glad we're on the same page.
It's not a 3/3. Like, it's definitely a 4/4. 4/4 flying, because it's obviously a flyer. And then something to deal with like a graveyard, either because like right in D&D you give it a amount of time and it comes back up from the dead. So there's gonna have to be, usually in black you have to pay a price to get it out of the graveyard. I don't know what that effect is gonna be. Maybe you have to sacrifice creatures to bring this back from the graveyard to the battlefield, or something to that degree. That's my best guess, to be honest.
All right, based on I could see that for sure. I also agree 4/4 flyer. I don't know how much mana it's going to cost. This for some reason this is giving me like just rare vibes instead of mythic, like just kind of like your basic rare, maybe even
Absolutely
uncommon. I don't know.
Yeah. Also,
it's giving me those kind of vibes. So I'm thinking maybe like a, I don't know, 5 or 6 mana 4/4 flyer that when it enters the battlefield, target opponent discards a card or something. Like I feel like it's gonna have some kind of like
discard
basic,
sounds good. Yeah,
basic like discard like ability, but I'm not sure. You know, it's impossible to say. I will say though, it's got an alt art, so it's got to be a rare, right? At least I don't. Do they do
because
alt arts?
they've done uncommon with alt arts,
Okay.
right?
So
like,
yeah, it might still be
like
an uncommon.
Narset wore the spark.
Oh yeah, true.
Isn't she uncommon?
Yep.
Even though she's like
not Narset,
busted.
But, oh, I think maybe Narset is, but I know they did some alt arts of all the planeswalkers, and they've done alt arts in Eldraine of uncommons and some other sets as well. So, yeah, that's true. I don't know. They seem like they've gone all in though on the art here, and I don't know. I feel like they wouldn't do that much effort if it was just for an uncommon. But maybe I'm wrong. I don't know. We'll see what happens. But I do believe that this is going to be. Unfortunately, my expectations is that I'll be underwhelmed when it comes out.
I think so too. Beholders are memorable, or a memorable thing in D&D, but this might not be the only beholder. I think it's not going to be the only beholder they print in the set. That's what I think.
Oh, it is common. It says right here, with the C at the bottom.
But the C, it's common. Okay, yeah, there you go. Yeah, so I think they're going to print another beholder. They're not going to just make something so iconic, just a common. So
I agree. All right, next up, this is one of my favorite revealed cards so far. This is Vorpal Sword.
Good.
1 black mana artifact equipment. Rare, and it has a few abilities here, so we'll start off at the top. Actually, we're going to start at the bottom. So with equipments, you have an equip cost to put it onto a creature. In this case, this artifact, this equipment, needs 2 black mana to equip it to a creature. So starting off at the very bottom, it's 2 black mana to equip. We're going to go back up all the way to the top. Equipped creature. So once you pay that 2 black mana, you put it on a creature. That creature gets +2/+0 and Death Touch. So the creature gets 2 power and the ability Death Touch, which means when it deals damage to another creature, it kills that creature after combat. So that's pretty good for a 1 mana equipment. 2 mana to equip, +2/+0 Death Touch is already pretty good. But then it's got a third ability here, and that ability is 5 mana of any color and then 3 black. You need at least 3 black to be able to use this ability, and it gives the equipment this ability. It doesn't give the creature this ability, it gives the equipment this ability. Until end of turn, Vorpal Sword gains this ability. Whenever equipped creature deals combat damage to a player, that player loses the game. Michael, what do you think?
I think it's a good card. It's so flexible. It's more flexible at first glance. And I keep trying to like process this card. And the more I process it, weirdly, the more I see this mostly doing the best, like its ceiling, the best it's going to do is in a control deck, because control decks want to go the long game. And so what a control deck in Magic the Gathering is, I counter your spell, so you can't play that spell. I destroy your creature. You can't play that creature. I'm going to stop certain effects from happening on the board because, this says so. I'm going to wipe the board. The board's going to be removed of all creatures. And then usually control has a way to make a token or two, right? Out of a spell. Like they'll play like, I counter your creature, I make a 2/2.
Right.
Like I make a creature. And then you have Vorpal Sword, so you can play Vorpal Sword for your turn 1 as a control deck. Play it turn 1, just leave it there almost the whole game. And then because you want some sort of finisher, because control decks have a hard time. They want to take the game to the very long end of the game, but normally they have a hard time finishing up the game. So they spend all this extra time in the timer. There's like a chess clock in Magic. So I feel like as a control player, you attach this onto like your puny little 2/2 after the whole board is clear. You activate it for 8 mana that's indicated here, and you swing and hit the other player, and you win the game. And I think that's where the ceiling is on this game, on this card. It's really hard to see it in aggro, because aggro, you should already, the other player should be dead before this even has a chance to be activated. And then it could also maybe see some play in mid range. But I think honestly, the best shell for this mid range card, it's gonna have to be in the Mardu thing, because the red white right now in standard is the artifacts deck. You can equip things for free.
Right.
You can
Dwarves
do
and all
stuff. Yeah, you can move your artifacts in specific ways. And so I think the mid-range option for this is the other case for this other than control is mid-range in a Mardu shell. So I don't know, but that's my assumptions. What do you think?
Okay. I agree totally. I don't think this is going to go in an aggro deck at all. I believe that it's efficiently costed, which is good. Giving +2/+0 is nice. The death touch isn't really going to matter that much in the long run for most people. But in an aggro deck, I could see it used to get a creature through. Maybe they've got a 6/6 and you've got a 1/1 with a Vorpal Sword on it. They're not going to want to block, so you're going to keep getting to hit them until they trade down into it. So that's pretty nice. I like it thematically with the art. You've got the head of Medusa, sliced off, and that kind of death touch feel is pretty cool. That often goes with Gorgons in Magic the Gathering, so it is pretty nice. And what's cool, as Wembo says in the chat, after turn 8, if it's equipped to a creature, you have no choice but to block it. There is no, you either remove the creature or you block it or you lose. And it's no more like, oh, I have 30 life, so I can take a hit from this thing. Like, if your opponent has 8 mana up and they're swinging at you with a Vorpal Sword equipped creature, you have very little options in what you can do. So I do like that. I also... go ahead.
Oh, yeah. That's why I said the ceiling is a control deck, right? Because you can put this onto like a tiny 1/1 token, and then you can go in for the swing for the Vorpal Sword, choose to whether or not to activate it, and you can do some sort of weird bounce effect instead of actually killing their creature or whatever, thus by like slowing down the tempo. So it's very versatile that's why I say the ceiling is control deck. Because you can do so many funky things with it, and you want to take the game that long. And then you can continue. I forgot to mention about what's awesome about this in D&D, but go ahead.
Okay. Last thing I'll mention here is with the ability, it reminds me of a card called Phage the Untouchable, which is an old legendary creature that is 3 black. So it's 3 mana with 4 black symbols, and she's a creature that if she enters the battlefield, you lose the game if you didn't cast her, I think, if that's correct. And when she hits somebody, let me read her real quick. Let's see. Phage says, when she enters the battlefield, if you didn't cast it from your hand, you lose the game. So you can't like cheat her out, basically. But she says whenever she deals combat damage to a creature, destroy that creature. So she has death touch, old school death touch. And she says whenever she deals combat damage to a player, that player loses the game. So it gave me very Phage the Untouchable vibes when I was reading it. And I do have a soft spot because Phage the Untouchable was one of my first commander decks, which is funny because she's like a joke commander. If you make her your commander, you literally can't cast her from the command zone, because if you do, you lose the game.
That's sweet.
So it was a very fun deck. You used Command Beacon to get her from your command zone to your hand. It's like a land. And then you do some other crazy shit to put her into play. And it's a cool ability that is very black. It's a very black ability to have somebody lose the game when they get hit. And I do really like it. So tell me why you think it's cool for like D&D.
Yeah, so how this translates from D&D to Magic Gathering, which we forgot to explain. We've been talking about flavor the whole time. In Magic, Vorpal Sword is something that a lot of melee adventurers seek out because it's such there's this powerful effect that happens with it. When you do a critical hit with the Vorpal Sword, rolling a natural 20, some other classes can change that range down to like 17, 18, 19 to a 20 for a critical hit. You get to lop a creature's head off if they have a head, and there's certain creatures that you can do that too. It'll tell you in the book what creatures it can. Essentially, just one shot, and that's so the 8 mana kill your opponent here is kind of harkening back or pointing to in D&D. If you roll a natural 20 with a Vorpal Sword, you just behead someone. Where in Magic they're choosing this effect as an 8 mana effect to. You're not don't behead people, but you're essentially in Magic the Gathering, you're beheading your opponent by doing 8 mana and swinging in with this and hitting your opponent.
Right. And I totally agree with that. You've got it perfectly in the art with the head of the Gorgon that is decapitated, and that also has cool ramifications for a D&D game as well, because sometimes when you cut the head off of a creature, sometimes that head can be useful in different ways, whether it contains like an ichor of some kind that you want, or it has an ability like the Medusa's head. Maybe you can use it to turn things to stone, kind of like Perseus from the Greek mythology. So there are cool things you can do with an ability that cuts someone's head cleanly off while they're still alive, kind of thing. It's pretty interesting. I think they did a good job with the thematic ideas.
And they have an
here.
alt art here as well, right?
Yes. Let's pull that up here. No decapitation on the alt art here, but instead a hero or villain holding the sword in a triumphant manner, shining in the sunlight. Thoughts?
Yeah, so I think this is alluding to or pointing to two different cosplayers in the D&D community, because it looks like it could be two different people. So there's literally someone on Twitter who goes by Vorpal Sword, who was on Saving Throw Show, one of the more precursor D&D shows, along with Critical Role during that time. So her name's Vorpal Sword. She also cosplays and stuff like that. And then there's April Gloria as well. And I don't know what their Twitter name is, if it's at April Gloria. But it also looks like April Gloria, another prolific cosplayer. And so I think what's cool here is, because cosplay is huge into D&D, I believe, is my thought, and I might be off, but I think they're also appreciating some people in the D&D community for their work as in cosplay. And they're kind of pointing to this. It's hard to tell, but I want to honestly say, like, this might be some cosplayers out there. And I think that's what's happening in this alt art. So that's April Gloria, right?
Yep.
And she does a lot of armor. She does a lot of armor things, cosplays, really good cosplayer. And then Vorpal Sword, literally her name is on Twitter, Vorpal Sword. I think she's done cosplays as well. So I think it's pointing to those type of people. As far as
Sword, is she's on Twitter?
Yeah,
is she a cosplayer?
She's an actress, and she's done some cosplay here or there.
Trying to find her Twitter.
Where's that Vorpal Sword?
Is it just at Vorpal Sword?
Oh, I guess not. Maybe you have to type in Vorpal Sword just normally, not at Vorpal Sword. Lonzo, I see that you're in
Amy
chat.
Vorpal?
Yeah, Amy Vorpal. That's
okay.
her. That's her.
All right, so yeah, I can totally see the.
Is it between those two? Maybe they kind of mash them together to do this art.
They may have. I like that. I hope that they did, because I think that it would be cool to see them acknowledging the community in that way. I think that would be really cool, because the community is what makes these games work. And without them, there is no game. So I really, I would really like that if they were actually using these two incredible content creators for their arts.
Yeah.
All right. So that is Vorpal Sword, and pretty cool equipment. Next up, first off, thank you for the bits, Shadow Friend Zen. Appreciate it. All right. Next up here, I had not seen this one before today, and I still haven't read it until just now. This is my first time reading it. This is LOLTH, the Spider Queen. Planeswalker, which is cool to me. That is a very hot Planeswalker. 5 mana, so 3 and 2 black. I'm sweating. Okay, LOLTH reads, Legendary Planeswalker, LOLTH. Here is her passive ability. So this is an ability she has all the time. Don't need to activate anything to have it. It's just on the card. Forever. When a creature you control dies, put a loyalty counter on LOLTH, the Spider Queen. The way Planeswalkers work is they have loyalty counters at the bottom right of the card. So when she comes into play, you pay 5 mana to put her into play, and she comes in with these 4 loyalty counters. And then whenever a creature you control dies, she gets another one. She gets an extra loyalty counter. So if a creature dies, she'll go up to 5. And then if 2 creatures die, she'll go up to 7. So on and so forth. First ability, 0 cost. So when you use a 0 ability on a Planeswalker, it neither takes away nor adds any loyalty counters. So you can use this ability once per turn. You draw a card, lose a life. That's already pretty good. Just a constant stream. If you can protect this Planeswalker, you can draw many cards without risking losing any loyalty on her. She has no plus abilities, though, so you're going to have creatures dying to get her plussed up on her loyalty here. -3, so you can remove 3 loyalty counters to create 2/2/1 black spider creature tokens with menace and reach. We can get into that in a bit. The last ability here at -8, you have to remove 8 loyalty from her, which means at base you need at least 4 creatures to die while she's in play, and then you can use this ability. You get an emblem with, whenever an opponent is dealt combat damage by 1 or more creatures you control, if that player lost less than 8 life this turn, they lose life equal to the difference. What an interesting ability. Do you have any immediate thoughts on this? This is my first time even reading it.
Yeah, so LOLTH, the Spider Queen, as far as just, we're going to talk about mechanics here, and then we can go into lore, but the mechanics here, it's interesting. It's really hard to evaluate in a vacuum because we don't know what the rest of the set looks like. I mean, within Strixhaven, it kind of has some play within the, someone said Golgari or Witherbloom. You have things like Plum, what was it? Plum, it's a card that, I forget what it's called. Someone in chat's going to tell me. But essentially it says you can sacrifice any amount of creatures and I believe draw that many cards, which is a powerful effect, especially with LOLTH, the Spider Queen. So if you have 4 creatures on the board and you play, it's Plum the Forbidden. You play Plum the Forbidden, you remove 4 creatures, you have her -8 ability ready to go. And then you can start closing out the game and making it very hard for your opponent to interact and try and figure things out with you. But like I said, it's still hard to evaluate in a vacuum because you have to have things die to put a counter on LOLTH. It's really that's some work, you know. You have to evaluate some MTG cards in the thoughts of like, how much work am I putting in to get how much value? And so you're doing some work here, and it's hard to determine if it's going to be a good card or bad card, because I know that you're going to have to do work here. The 2/1 spider creature tokens with menace and reach, that's okay, because you're not going to go up in loyalty points. At best, you're going to have a -1, right? If you block with both of them, they die. She goes to like, whatever. 2. You're going to have 2 loyalty if you just slam her down and do that effect right away, or 3. So I think the -8 is definitely interesting, but I don't know how this is all going to play out. I don't think it's going to be as good. I don't think it's going to be that great in standard, unless you have to make your deck around her. I think that's how that works, which kind of works flavor-wise, but I think you have to kind of build your deck around her if you want her to be in your deck for standard.
Right. I can agree with that. I think that she's going to work great in an Aristocrats-like strategy that cares about creatures dying for different reasons, whether it's drawing cards, gaining life, draining life, all those kinds of things. Anything that makes creatures at a rate that this thing makes creatures is good. With that said, I think that, like you said, the -8 emblem is, in my opinion, a bit underwhelming after thinking about it for a little bit. What's cool about it is you can have a 1/1 unblockable hit somebody, and then at the end of the turn, they're going to lose 7 life because they haven't lost 8 life yet. So really, your 1/1 kind of turns into an 8/8 unblockable, which is pretty cool. With that, though, this emblem doesn't stack, I believe. So if you have 2 of these emblems, you're not gonna have them lose 14 life if you hit them with a 1/1, because the first emblem's going to trigger. They're going to lose 7 life, bringing them to 8 life loss for the turn. And then the second emblem's going to trigger. It's going to check to see if they've lost 8 life, and they have. So it won't trigger at all.
Yeah.
So unfortunately, I don't think this will stack. But there are some cool synergies in standard and in other sets that are good with Aristocrats. Like I said, with creatures dying, I think she's going to be really nicely slotted into those decks. And sometimes I think LOLTH's going to end up with 20 counters on her. I think sometimes LOLTH's going to end up with 15, 16 counters on her. And it's going to be easily -8, get the emblem just for free, and then continue going on my strategy. And now it's just a bonus.
Yeah, I think it would have actually even more powerful if it said, like, whenever any creature dies. That would actually been really awesome. Because
Oh man.
And I don't think that's too busted for 5 mana because like, yeah, I think that would be fine. But anyway, it says only your creatures you control. There's also a culling ritual. So what would be interesting is you slam this down. The next turn you have culling ritual, which is I don't know if it's all permanents or creatures, but for every creature or 2 mana thing that dies, you generate a black or a green mana. And so you play that, and then this goes up to like, to up to 9, you minus that, and then you can still play other cards out of your hand. That'd be really good. So like I said, you still have to build around LOLTH, the Spider Queen, so that's awesome. And then if you want to talk more about the card, that's great. But at some point I'm going to go into the lore of it, but is there anything else that you want to talk about this card?
I'll lead into the lore for you with my critique of the card, which is I think that there is a miss here in a way with maybe it's because there isn't another card yet that's been released. Maybe they're waiting to release a card related to LOLTH, but I think there should have been some drow either in the art or in the abilities somewhere. And I don't mean like make a drow, I mean like make an elf, or if you sacrifice an elf, like in the passive ability, if an elf you control dies, like you could add this in there. Like whenever a creature you control dies, put a loyalty counter on LOLTH. If it was an elf, put 2 counters on instead. Or something like that. That's my opinion just on it. Flavor-wise, talk about the lore a little bit.
Yeah, so the lore here is LOLTH is so much to cover. So the first one we saw was like the standard art, right? And then we go into the second art, which I believe tells a story in its own, right? This adventurer is exploring the Underdark because that's LOLTH's realm. And maybe they kind of got this like siren kind of call from LOLTH, and then they got a little bit too close, and now they're ended up the way that we see them now. LOLTH is like cradling them, probably going to do something maleficent, and that's awesome. But
do you want me to go back to the old art?
No, this is fine. Okay. So LOLTH is the queen of spiders. She's also like the god queen, the matron god queen of the drow, the dark elves who live in the Underdark. They have a lot of 8 flavor in here, like -8, lose less than 8 life because she's a spider. In R.A. Salvatore or Bob Salvatore's what do you call this, books, there's a lot of themes of 8, the houses of 8, there's a lot of 8 stuff happening in drow culture. And then LOLTH is just like a merciless kind of like someone who's really like, all these creatures that are in black so far have like really high strategy, master manipulator kind of vibes, and that's who they are. So and then to speak about the Planeswalker part, if you watch and if you didn't watch it, the Legend of Driss thing that's on YouTube from Wizards of the Coast that they just released, how they're doing Planeswalkers in this set is, hey, has this entity been to a different realm, like within just D&D? They're not planeswalking to Ravnica. They're not planeswalking to, at least they didn't allude to that, which they can. They totally could if they want to, but they're not planeswalking to familiar MTG places. Did they planeswalk within D&D?
Right.
Okay, they're a planeswalker. And I don't know if for some reason I thought it was like they said that they went to 3 different planes. I want to say the MTG manager or the director said that that's what they were trying to criteria a planeswalker in this says, that they've been to 3 different realms. I don't know why that's sticking in my mind, but in any case, they've planeswalked or
so they don't have the spark.
I don't know if they have the spark. So all they just said is that they have like visited different realms under their own power or under their own volition. Like they were the ones who initiated like
literally
them hopping from another.
Like
right, exactly. Okay. So I don't know if they're saying like these, like LOLTH has a spark. It wouldn't be out of sorts to think that like LOLTH has a spark. It'd be kind of cool.
Easy to explain.
Yeah, so that's I think that's most of the flavor here that is going on. And LOLTH is an abyssal being, I believe. So she's been to the abyss.
Yep,
100%.
That's her home plane.
That's her home plane, and she's probably planeswalked someplace else to like wreak havoc. Actually, yeah, because she she's in the Forgotten Coast, I believe, but I believe she's also hopped to other material planes as well. She showed up in other material planes where there's drow. So yeah,
right. Yep. I agree. I think the lore here is interesting. She has traveled to different planes, whether it's the mortal plane, the abyss, or many of the other planes. She's been around the block, so having her a planeswalker works perfectly. I think thematically speaking, as a magic nerd, I'm not much into the lore of magic, but I do know how planeswalkers work with their sparks, and so I am curious to know if she has a spark. I wonder if they'll answer that question or not. That said, I think she's a cool card, unique in a planeswalker aspect. Having no plus abilities for a 5-mana walker is pretty new. Normally planeswalkers that have no plus abilities are very low mana because they're kind of like a temporary thing. They've got it for a while, that power for a while. Think of War of the Spark, where there was many planeswalkers that had no plus abilities, but they were like 2 mana, 3 mana. They were not super expensive. Whereas LOLTH, 5 mana, you're getting into pretty expensive territory for a card. You've got to spend a whole turn casting LOLTH, and so I think she's cool. I think the -8's a bit underwhelming to kind of summarize everything, but I do think that she works incredibly well in an aristocrat strategy, and she could be broken in the right kind of hands.
Yep. Cool.
Anything else you want to say about it?
Jesper Epstein, the artist here, iconic MTG artist. So the alternate art. So, and he's a very adamant commander player. So you can see him in things like the Command Zone and all these other shows that play commander. So
yes, we love Jesper,
awesome.
And seeing his art in the full art alternate art is an honor.
Yeah.
And then Tyler Jacobson again with the art for the original.
Good. This is also good. I like the realism. The realism is really good.
And it looks like the person beneath is worshiping her as well, which goes well with the cleric idea of her having a lot of worshipers and people who would give
the form and perspective is really good here. The form of like the guy looking up, her like looking up as a like this is a ritualistic thing, and yeah, it's all good. It all works.
Well, we've only got 2 cards left.
Let's do it.
Starting off with Brunor Battlehammer, 2 mana of any color, a red and a white for a legendary creature dwarf warrior. Uncommon from the set. 5/3, so 5 power, 3 toughness. Has 2 abilities. First ability, each creature you control gets +2/+0 for each equipment attached to it. And the second ability is you may pay 0 rather than pay the equip cost for the first equip ability you activate each turn. Flavor text is, knew I'd find you in trouble if I came out and looked for you.
Yeah.
Thoughts?
It's good. This is on flavor with everything they've released regarding like dwarves and artifacts, and it being Boros being red and white colors. It being 0. So like earlier I said about it being in a Mardu shell, like the Vorpal sword, you can maybe attach Vorpal sword onto Brunor Battlehammer if things go that direction in a game. But that'd be strange, but still cool. But a 5/3 really good. And especially, I probably want to think if you're playing an artifacts deck, he's probably going to be a 6/4, to be honest, because if you play him and you have a creature, not even that, it would be like an 8. This actually might be a really powerful card. It would be like an 8/5 or something, possibly, because of each creature you control gets +2/+0 for each equipment attached to it. So say you have like even just a 1/1 thing out there, and you put Brunor Battlehammer, it's 0 to equip Brunor Battlehammer. So now you have like an 8/5 on turn 4. Really good. So it could play out that way, and I can see it reasonably playing that way, like in 40%, 50% of the games, which is still high enough to even want to play this card. So, and Boros is looking good right now. Boros is one of the stronger decks in Standard. So, and I think a lot of it's going to carry on through the Standard block. So I think, as far as just Magic the Gathering goes, 5/3 for 4, that's probably going to be more than a 5/3. Good card.
Agreed. Yeah, I think that the Boros Dwarf deck is getting a great tool here. I think that the dwarves themselves are already great with equipments, so having a way to equip them for free once per turn is great. This also allows you to really cheat some equipment costs. There are some very expensive equip costs in the game right now, and in the legacy of Magic, if we're talking Commander and things like that, there are some very expensive equip costs that can be cheated for 0 mana, which is very cool. For example, someone mentioned in the chat Colossus Hammer, which is notoriously expensive to equip. It's a 1 mana equipment that gives +10/+10, but I believe it costs 8 to equip.
Yeah.
So 0 mana, you get to equip that +10/+10 onto your little 1/1 or your Brunor, and that's pretty busted. So that does sound pretty cool. I think that the ability is very neat. I think what's really cool for me is dwarves right now are making treasures, which means you kind of get mana of any color just randomly, which means you can throw some interesting equipments into your deck to equip for free. Say if there's an equipment that's like, I don't know, it's 2 and a black or something, and you need that black mana. You use one of your treasures, many treasures that the dwarves make, to put into play, and then you just equip it for free onto something. You can kind of run some interesting artifacts in this Boros deck, even if they have equip costs that have colored abilities in them. Like you need like 2 black to equip Vorpal Sword. You don't need 2 black to equip Vorpal Sword with him out. You just equip it onto something. So it's kind of interesting. I do like Brunor, and he also has an alternate art here that I'll put over to while you're talking. Any lore that you want to mention?
Yeah, so Brunor Battlehammer, same thing from R.A. Salvatore's books, his realms. He is I jokingly said like dwarf daddy because he has his own. Does he have his own child? I don't even know if he has his own child or if he did at some point, but he's basically been like a foster dad to like all these lost adventurers or these lost folks. So like you have Drizzt, who's a famous drow. You
married his daughter, right? Didn't Drizzt? I think
I don't know if I read up to that point, which is fine. I don't care about swords, but yeah. So that might have happened. And so Drizzt, you have that drow, that dark elf who crawled his way out of the Underdark to find his own path to do good because he didn't want to be under LOLTH anymore. It's more detailed than that. And then you have Catti Bree, who's a human archer who Brenner has also took under his wing, along with Drizzt. And then you have Wulfgar, who is a barbarian or something to that.
Yeah, like a Viking.
Viking barbarian type. And he took him under his wing. And he's, in one way or the other, he's made... he's a not famous, but he's a prolific like master blacksmith, like artisan. So Wulfgar, he's made essentially what you think about Thor's hammer in Marvel movies. He's made that for this barbarian in the books. And he's made different sort of armors and stuff for the crew that he's taken underneath his wing. So I alluded to like kind of like dwarf daddy. I alluded to that because he's like kind of like a cool stubborn father figure in the books, but he still has like a good heart. You know, he has all that dwarf stubbornness, but kind of like that flexible heart of taking in people and caring and trying to see the best for folks. So
right. And I think he comes off in his art as a like badass that has you can just tell from his build and the way his beard is braided. He's a badass with a soft side, and you can kind of see it even in the art. He's like your old dwarf daddy. Yeah, I like it.
And the flavor text actually speaks into him, like not just being this like stubborn, angry dwarf that we normally with like a warrior dwarf,
right,
which we see dwarf warrior. You see those and they're like very hard-headed and stubborn and you can't deal with them. But this shows that he's like, I know I'd find you in trouble, so I came out and looked for you. So like you can tell he's like a wholesome, good dwarf, which is you get all of that flavor within this card.
Exactly. Great addition to Magic. Good encompassing of the Brunor story as well. And our last card for the day is, as we mentioned earlier, the Lost Boy Drow from the Underdark escaping LOLTH. We have Drizzt Do'Urden, legendary creature, elf, ranger. It's a rare from the set. It's 5 mana, 3 mana of any color, a green and a white. So total of 5 mana. It's a 3/3 with double strike is the first ability. So it can when it deals damage twice on when it deals damage. 2 abilities here that go off of each other.
Mm-hmm.
First, when Drizzt Do'Urden, is it Do'Urden?
I believe it's Do'Urden, yeah.
Drizzt Do'Urden enters the battlefield, create, and I've always struggled with this name, Gwenvar,
I believe.
Gwenvar, a legendary 4/1 green cat creature token with trample, and that's the first ability. So when he enters the battlefield, you create a legendary 4/1 cat with trample, and then second ability, whenever a creature dies, if it had power greater than Drizzt power, so greater than 3, put a number of 1/1 counters on +1/+1 counters on Drizzt equal to the difference. So if you had a 5 power creature die while Drizzt was in play, you put 2 +1/+1 counters on Drizzt. Then then his power is 5, so you would need a 7 or 6 or more power creature to die to get any more 1/1 counters on him. So it's not just based on his 3/3. It keeps scaling. So the more and more bigger creatures you kill, the bigger and bigger Drizzt gets. How do you feel about this one?
I think I blew this up too much because I was way too excited in my Twitter post. So I have to kind of dial it back a bit here. But it's a good card. I think it's a good card. The effect for 5 mana is decent. It's not terrible to where you wouldn't want to cast this. Double strike, great. Gwenvar getting a 4/1 on top of a 3/3, so you're putting effectively 7 power on board. Still really great. And then, if Gwenvar gets bounced or not bounced, but if Gwenvar dies somehow or another creature more than Drizzt dies, so you hold back Drizzt for a bit, and then he becomes like a 4/4, 5/5, goes on and on. There's so many things to this card, and it's going to be interesting to see how it's used. But I think it's a solid card just overall. It's not busted and it's not underwhelming. I think it's just like right in the middle. So this might be sideboard because I said that, like, because it's not like just straight up busted out of the gate. It might be a sideboard. This could definitely be played as a commander. It'd be really interesting to see this being played as a commander, just because like you can send in all these other creatures in to get killed or whatever that you don't care about that are high in power, and then you give Drizzt, he has double strike, so he's going to like tear through whatever they have more than likely. And if you give him any sort of evasion on top of that, it's just, he's going to get really strong. If you want to, this can be a good commander. So that's what I feel about the MTG side of things. And there's more that I want to associate with MTG and D&D all at the same time. So I'm going to let you go. And what do you have to say about it?
Okay, so I agree. I think that this is an interesting commander card. Like you said, I don't know if this works in standard for 5 mana. It has no protection, unfortunately. It does make an extra body when it comes in, which is nice, but it's a 4/1 body, which dies to almost anything, which does make it a bit tough. That said, I think there's a few things I have critiques on. So I have not really looked at this card in depth until talking with you about it. And knowing Drizzt's lore in the way that I do, I think, and this is just an opinion thing, I do think there's a bit of a miss here. Although Drizzt is a good character, good aligned, I do think that 3 green and a black would have been better for a couple reasons. One of which, he is a drow, which in MTG most drows seem to kind of chill in the black realm. The panther, his panther comes from an obsidian little like an onyx colored black statue, which I think would have been cool thematically speaking. That's where Gwenvar comes from. And it also has an ability on it that cares about when creatures die, which I think is a very black thing. And so I think it's a slight miss for me on the colors of the card. I wouldn't have even minded if it was 2 green, black, white. Like if it was 3 color, I wouldn't mind. I think that would be a little much for an ability like this. It's not strong enough, I don't think, to be 3 color, because then it's much harder to get out, and the ability is just not good enough, I don't think, and no one would.
Or you do 4 total CMC with that,
right? Yeah. And so I I think that the card is very cool, but it is also underwhelming, and it's not going to see any standard play, in my opinion. Very little, at least. I do think that it is cool for the lore, because he is like a hunter that goes for stronger and stronger targets as he levels up. So he kills a target, gets some +1/+1 counters, then goes for a bigger target, and then gets some more +1. I do like that kind of like ascension leveling experience. I think it's a bit of miss with the colors. That's all.
Yeah. I think as we keep discussing it, I think it's a solid sideboard card. I think like if you're playing maybe against control, you slap this down, at least you have a creature on board, and maybe you can equip creature or do something or the other, make the creature more powerful. So you at least know if it doesn't get countered, you're going to have something stick more than likely. So I think that's kind of good. I know that someone on my Twitter, and I shouldn't have blocked them, but he was upset. Someone was just like, they missed, and they were just like kind of really negative. And I think there's so many things to take away from this. And I think they just kind of went more lore heavy type of stuff. So he's green-white. Yeah, he used to be a drow, but he spent so much time praying to like a ranger unicorn goddess that he just really wants to do like good. He's like, in that moment, there was like a coming to being for Drizzt where he like needed to shed away the LOLTH, because LOLTH was like in his mind all the time. Then he found this unicorn goddess who was a ranger type of goddess, and he did what he needed to do to kind of be under her gaze or whatever. And so that's why I think we see Selesnya here. And then in the books, you normally see, and I think why this is saying when a creature dies, Drizzt's power goes up by +1/+1 counters. I think the reason why we're seeing this, and alongside Double Strike in the books, when the battle is starting to look dire, that's when Drizzt turns on. Like he like flips a switch, and then he just goes into his like old training back in Menzo Baranzan, the Drow city is from. He like switches back to like this really primordial, very like disciplined, rigorous like swordsman where just blades are flashing everywhere, and like he just up tempos someone and just destroys them. And so I think that's what we're seeing with the Double Strike and the +1/+1s. And he usually only turns that on since he's been out of Menzo Baranzan when his friends are in danger or the back's against the wall. And so you're seeing like, if Guinevere goes down, if another creature you have controls dies who's more powerful, then he just starts picking himself up stronger and stronger. So I think it was a lot of they're really trying to go with the lore on this card.
Gotcha.
So it might be underwhelming as far as the effect goes, but I can see it. Like I said, good. It might be a good solid sideboard card, because at least if they take out Drizzt, you have Guinevere. If they take out Guinevere, you have Drizzt. So
Right.
it could be good sideboard against a control-heavy deck when you're playing Selesnya colors. And I think it's actually probably good in Commander, because in Commander, there's several different ways you can manipulate this to be stronger than it just being the card that you see. You can, like I said, give it evasion, you can give it flying, you can make it unblockable, and it's double striking, and you have all these other creatures that you play Questing Beast or something. It's a 5/5. That thing dies. Drizzt gets now as a 4/4 double strike. That's a little bit scary. That's something to be worried about at a commander table. So I think, like I said, I think it's a good overall card. Standard play, I think it might be a sideboard card, but we'll see.
Yeah, definitely. I think standard sideboard is about as good as it's going to get for Drizzt. One thing I thought of, which is totally against flavor but cool for Commander, throw a mirror gallery in your deck and start blinking Drizzt. Mirror gallery says the legend rule doesn't apply, and then you flicker Drizzt, you exile Drizzt and bring him back to the battlefield a bunch of times. You make as many 4/1 Guineveres as you want. If you put out a mirror gallery, that would be a cool little deck that would be fun to see. Totally against flavor for the character, but
there's cool. Cat's an important thing in Commander. Like you can make some sort of busted effect with Guinevere, like many Guineveres on the board. So it's a legendary. Oh, so that you couldn't even make a copy.
Right,
really,
which is why you need the mirror gallery, because then if you have the mirror gallery, the legend rule doesn't apply. You can have as many of them as you want.
Okay, so I think it might be. I think it could actually be a solid commander card and a decent sideboard card.
Yeah, and we could see some cool stuff. And again, art by Tyler Jacobson, doing a lot of work here. It seems like what they're spoiling looks like they're spoiling based on the artist. It seems to me like they're spoiling like the artist's cards. At least I'm not sure if they'll have a bunch more Tyler Jacobson cards or not. But we've gotten like 4 or 5 of them. We got a few from the guy who made the lands. Forget his name already.
Yeah.
But I wonder if they'll keep releasing based on artist or kind of how they're going to be doing it. But
I wonder if Tyler's a D&D primarily artist. I'm feeling that he is.
It looks
I think,
like he does some of the art for the books or something. It looks
Yeah.
very...
because that like very movement heavy brushstrokes, like paint brushstrokes is happening here, what you see in the D&D books. Because there's movement happening, and then like very, like I said, these brushstrokes that kind of, if you look in detail, they're not the cleanest, but it also shows movement. So
Yeah, Tyler Jacobson's done a lot of Magic art as well,
Okay.
and he did the cover for the Player's Handbook. So,
that makes sense. Yeah.
yeah, he did the big fire giant that's on the Player's Handbook, and he's also done art for Dovin Bond, Hapatra. He did the art for the he is the D&D artist. He did the art for Bolo's Guide to Monsters. He did the art for Jace. So he's big into both sides of Wizards.
Nice.
Oh, he
Yeah,
did,
well-
he did the DM guide art with the Lich on it, the DM handbook. So
Yeah.
he is the.
You can
D&D
tell his
artist.
art style. That's why I was like, you can tell his art style because it's bold, and it's like the brushstrokes, while not precise, they're bold. He has a specific art style, and they always look like movement heavy. If you kind of like look at the card, it always looks like something is happening. So even though it's not the cleanest lines, it still invokes something. So I think that's really cool.
Absolutely. And last thing is just the alternate art for Drist here in this kind of like old storybook kind of art.
Rad.
Dual wielding the swords that goes with the double strike really nicely. He looks like a badass. I think they did a nice job with it.
Yeah, I think it's good. So yeah, I think it's good. Like I said, sideboard card, good flavor. It's funny because I think everyone gets something out of the books different from other people. So like I know that a lot of people are disappointed because it seems that Drist is like this ultra powerful being, and into some degree he is, but he's done a lot of work on himself as a drow, as a warrior, figure out his path in life. And I think if you look at it from that direction, that you commonly see in the books, that when the tide is when things are looking down, he turns the tide of battle by turning it on. And I think that's what that's what they were trying to imply. Like they're trying to more focus on Drizzt's being than all the lore he's done throughout his lifetime. Of course, if you look at all the lore that Drizzt done in his lifetime, he's almost like a demigod, right? He's just crushing folks. But if you take him moment by moment, scene by scene, or like who he is as himself, I think it actually is spot on. So
I can agree with that. I do worry a bit. It seems like they are skipping to the end of these characters' stories instead of starting them. You know what I mean? And what I mean by that is I want them to do another D&D set. It would be cool if they started Drist off in the way he starts in the story, and the next set he's Selesnya instead of Golgari, or something like that, where he like transitions. I thought that would be kind of a cool idea. It seems like maybe they're just kind of going with where they end their story or where the character is most well known, which is totally fine. It's not a big deal. Yeah. There's so many D&D characters to draw from that they could do a whole nother set with a bunch of different characters, and they wouldn't even have to continue their stories.
And some people like Jarlaxle more than Drist. Like I've known people who are like, Jarlaxle's way better, Drist sucks. And like, who knows? We might get like a black-blue Jarlaxle that gives you the flavor that you really want. Like just crushing folks. Like maybe that's what we'll get. We don't know. And I don't think this is going to be the last D&D set they do if this does well.
It will.
Because there's so much content to pull from all D&D to put into Magic cards, so if this set does well, I don't think this is the last time we visit the Forgotten Realms or any sort of D&D realm. So I think it should be good.
And last thing before we go, let's talk about wishes for the set, things you want to see.
Sure. I definitely want to see, I alluded to it earlier, but I definitely want to see like tricolor things. I think a lot of things in D&D evoke tricolor things out of me. And hopefully we can get like the other set of the tricolor lands that we were supposed to get, right? Because
The
there's
triomes.
triomes. I think it'd be kind of cool to see if we can get other triomes. I don't know. I don't remember if they said they're going to do triomes again or any of that, but I think it'd be kind of cool because, like, right, we can argue Drizzt is Abzan. We can say that actual Beholder is Grixis. We can there's probably some sort of teamer type of creature that's out there in D&D that I'm not thinking of right off the top of my head. So I think there's so much things that can be pulled out of this set. Lich. I need to see a Lich. I want some good Liches, some good Warlocks. I want to see a Vecna. If Vecna is a legendary creature with some awesome effects, you know your boy gonna be building a commander.
I think it's gotta be Esper. Vecna Esper sounds dope to me.
Yeah, Vecna Esper. Yeah, that actually does work. I think Vecna Esper does work.
Or just Dimir.
Or just Dimir. But yeah, it'd be rad to see Vecna if he's awesome commander. Just there, build up around him. You know, I can't wait to slap down a Vecna as a commander if that's a thing. So that's like my number one wish, is like some good Lich, Lich.
Yeah, I'm with you there. I want to see Vecna. I want to see Xanathar. I want to see a Critical Role nod somewhere in here. They've done something for this game that has changed the landscape of D&D, and Wizards knows it. That's why they've released literal wild mount lore and books and stuff. They know that Critical Role has changed this game for the better. For people, has brought people from all over into it. So I do think that I want to see a Critical Role nod, and I want to see a mechanic where we roll a d20.
That's fair. I think those two things are kind of cool. I didn't even consider like Critical Role. Obviously, Critical Role plays a huge part into my life and lots of people's lives who play D&D. But for some reason, I like kind of not associated the two. And I don't know if they will. I don't know. And if they don't, that's okay. But also, like, I know a lot of fans from both genres would really like to see a little bit of that. So it'd be kind of cool if they do a nod, like one or two cards with that. But I think going more than that would be maybe a disservice, in a sense of like people will probably hyper critique, like, it's not perfect Grog. Like, I need my Grog to be
Grog, I don't need to see a legendary creature that's even a named character. Maybe just a flavor text, or like on a Raven Queen art, you have like one of the, you could have Vax from season 1 or something on the Raven Queen art, like just a nod. I don't need to see Matt Mercer as the DM card. I don't need I don't need that. It doesn't need to be obvious. I just want to see
a nod is good. Nod. Yeah, for sure. Because like, even with the Drizzt card, it's not meeting people's expectations, obviously. But I think it's okay. Like, I think it's an okay card. Obviously, like, I'd love to see Drizzt perform better as a card, but like, I think it's okay card, and I think that's okay, because like, not everything in Magic is always going to be busted. Like,
if everything's busted, nothing's busted, and that's no.
You're fun. Right. So. And this might be the last time we see Drizzt as a card. So I think some of the fans need to, step back a little bit and enjoy what they're trying to really put out here, because I think they're actually really trying. I think this is a really good try for Drizzt, and if you are a real big fan of his books and you have a little patience and perspective, I think they kind of did all right.
I totally agree. All right, Michael. Thanks for being here for this table talk with me, talking about the new cards. Anything you want to shout out, projects you've got coming up, things you're doing?
So many things. All right. So today I have Let's Get Wild Mount with Critical Bard. I believe our show starts at 1:30 p.m. PST. So if you want to check that out, Critical Bard's known in the D&D space, in the Critical Role space, along with Opera Geek. We have Aki, we have several other cast members who are kind of known in the D&D realms and kind of Critical Role, like, adjacent. Like,
he's been on Critical Role, hasn't he? Critical Bard?
CB? Yeah. No, I don't think so. He's done vocals. He's done vocals for them, but I don't think he's quite have been on. He might. I don't know if he's been on set, but I know that he's done vocals for them.
Incredible content creator.
Yeah,
And he was PogChamp for a while, or what? Yeah, he was PogChamp.
Yeah, it was
for
during
a day.
that PogChamp like 24 hours thing. That was a whole debacle.
Oh
But
man, yeah, that was such bullshit.
so that was the thing. But so there's that show today where we play in Wildmount. So we play Wildmount with Gil, who you folks know, like Marisha Ray was saying, like, don't fuck me, Gil. It's my best Marisha impersonation. So yeah, so that's to look forward today. I also have Into the Motherlands, which is a sci-fi TTRPG, Afro-futuristic game, which is amazing, near and dear to my heart. We raised 150 plus on Kickstarter. So if you want to see any more of that like content for, you know, space adventure, BIPOC stuff, just very inclusive game, go ahead and check that out. Maybe donate to that and check out the game on Wednesdays. That happens on Wednesdays. And then I have Second Star to the Right, which is a game, Neverland game. It's a game that takes place in Neverland, D&D. So that happens every other Friday. And then I have Faith Forge Academy. That's finally the last show that I'm on at the moment, which is a podcast that takes place in a school in the Feywild. So I have all that. And then once the semester's over, I'll be playing lots more Magic the Gathering on my own channel, MichaelCrits. And if you want to know more about me, episode released on Roll for Persuasion, the podcast, where I talk a little bit more about myself and my history with Magic the Gathering and D&D and the military and all this other stuff. So, yeah.
Okay, perfect. Thank you so much again for being here. Are you down to do this again when we release more cards?
Yeah, 100%. Like,
awesome.
This has been good, and I think this has been a good resource for people who are trying to figure out either or of the things like Magic or MTG. And I actually, like, just to reflect on it really quickly, I actually knew more about Magic the Gathering than I thought I did, like in terms of just like all of the history of it. And then I didn't know if I was going to be able to pull all the lore from all the things I've read from the past, because like I've been more player character than DM lately, and I haven't been. There's a lot of books back there, but I haven't gone through all those books. I've probably only gone through like 3 or 4 of them. So yeah, just this has been a great exercise of just kind of grabbing everything and trying to analyze cards, and analyzing cards from an art perspective, from a Magic perspective, from a D&D. There's just so much here, and this has been great.
I agree. I totally agree. I had a lot of fun going through the different pieces and aspects of the cards and really thinking about them in a way that I don't often think about cards when they're spoiled. I just think, oh yeah, it's cool, or oh yeah, that's like whatever.
Now, what are the mechanics?
Exactly. It's a mix of bringing together a mix of two of my favorite things, and really like showing the love of both of them, and that's a lot of fun, and I like talking with you about it. So let's plan to do it again when we've got another set of cards to talk about. And
sounds good.
I'm going to raid into Shrub the DM.